This paladin is so despicable. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 226, Let the Rose Bloom. Under the urging of the blue gem, Wright led the two women to successfully leave the consciousness space. When they appeared in front of the fairy tale town again, the lie demon was shocked. "You finally came back. Hey, why are you still here? Didn't I ask you to go to the present world to help? The present world has won. I'm waiting here to take you back." The lie demon's expression was very subtle, to be honest. This time it was really thrilling. I didn't expect that guy to be able to fight on two fronts. If she invaded the harbor city, the consequences would be disastrous. Of course, I said this not to praise my own achievements, nor to take credit for you, nor did I think of taking the opportunity to make some requests. I just think. Before he finished speaking, his nose had grown to the point where it lifted up his own puppet body. Wright shook his head helplessly and reached out to break his nose. To make a long story short, tell me about the situation in the present world. The lie demon was extremely angry. He had never hated a fairy tale so much. You know, lying is not only his priesthood, but also his hobby. Now every time he lies, he is exposed, which makes him very hurt and has no happiness at all. But Wright doesn't care whether he is happy or not. After all, this guy is still a demon and the owner of the concept of lies. His happiness is built on the misfortune of others. What's more, he is still a prisoner who is atonement for his previous actions. If he is too happy, what is the meaning of imprisonment? He must make him feel like he is in prison all the time, even though he is not in a cage. The lying demon had no way to face Wright, so he had to honestly tell him everything that happened after the three of them entered the fog. Wright was very relieved after listening to it. In the face of such a crisis, they solved the enemy with their own efforts. To be honest, it has exceeded his expectations. It is not in vain. He spent so many resources to train them. Lilith asked quietly, "Tell me the truth. Do you have a backup plan behind your back?" Wright spread his hands. "With my personality, do you think I have no backup plan? Don't worry. I tried it when Leopi was making trouble. Although the fog will cut off the connection between the god realm and the mortal world, it will not interfere with the demon realm. The principle is unclear, but this is the fact. I guess that after all, the god of the ocean is on the path of God and has a better understanding of the god realm, but has no means to restrict the demon realm. Anyway, I have set up a triggering array in the harbor city. Once there is a problem, the sea prison connected to the 13 prisons of the demon realm will be opened. The demons in the sea prison will treat the incoming enemies well. But at that point, the harbor city may suffer a lot of damage in the war. The frontier position we worked so hard to build to observe Dragon Island is probably going to be destroyed." Wright said here, patting the shoulder of the lying demon. "Leopi, you did a good job this time. Don't worry, I won't treat you badly." The lying demon was relieved when he heard that there was a benefit. Then he asked curiously, "Well, boss, how are you guys doing?" Wright chuckled. "How should I describe it to you? It can be said to be a great victory. But I accidentally let the culprit run away. But fortunately, this guy's already at the end of his strength. It won't be difficult to find him. Now, we have to completely wipe him out and bring Gladys back. Okay. This little hairy god has made me so busy. If I'm not controlled by this body, I must let her know the dangers of the divine world." Wright ignored him, but made a gesture to the two women and woke up directly from the dream. When he opened his eyes, he saw a figure lying on his protective barrier. Emily was holding a crowbar and knocking outside the barrier, looking very busy. "I say, what are you doing? It's really weird. Why did your shield appear again? Wasn't it gone when you were sleeping before?" "Because when I sleep, my consciousness is in my body. Even if there is danger, I can react. But when I enter the dream gap, my consciousness is temporarily separated from my body. So, every time I actively enter a dream, the shield will automatically open. So, why did you do it this time?" Emily thought for a long time and smiled. I saw that the fog on your body has faded, so I wanted to try it. I didn't expect that your defense is still so tight. Your IQ is still so high and low. Wright raised his hand, wrapped Emily with the protective shield on his body, and then carried her out of his room. As a result, when he went out, he saw Helen and all the members of the Holy Rose half kneeling in the courtyard. Or rather, all the members of the Bloody Rose. Looking at the familiar face, Wright smiled slightly. Okay, Helen, and everyone else, I've heard about your story, you guys. Emily was wrapped in the barrier, but still kept her curiosity. Wait, didn't you just wake up? Why have you heard about it, and who did you hear it from? Wright took a deep breath. Of course it's Leopi. Don't talk. I finally got into a state of excitement, but you interrupted it all. As he spoke, Wright stepped back into the room, and then walked out again, like he did just now. Okay, Helen, and everyone else, I've heard about your story, you guys. Why are you doing that time travel thing again? Shut up. Why do you always interrupt me? It's happening all over again. Looking at the familiar scene in front of them, the girls of the Scarlet Rose Knights couldn't help but think of the encounter outside the holy city, and they all laughed out loud. That's right. Flowers are beautiful only when they are in full bloom, and girls are beautiful only when they smile. Such a beautiful scenery is worthy of the name of Rose. Wright put his hands behind his back and looked at everyone with a smile. The past is the past. Since you have left the Holy Light Church and come to the Flesh and Blood Church, that means that your life has opened a new chapter. There is not much time for you to reminisce about the past. Unlike the super large companies you worked for before, our Flesh and Blood Church is a small startup company that is still on the rise. Everyone has endless work to do, but as long as you work hard, your future achievements are also limitless. Of course, I don't think you need to worry about the issue of faith. In the future, the twin goddesses of Holy Light will open the Divine Court and recruit like-minded gods to govern the world together. It is better to share happiness with others than to enjoy it alone. It is really good when everyone is happy. The girls of the Bloody Rose did not understand Wright's words, but they had already decided to be loyal to Wright at the cost of their lives. It doesn't matter what you say, just be loyal. It sounds like you're looking for someone to work for you, so you can be a hands-off boss. Lilith opened the door and came into the courtyard. Emily seemed to have found her savior. Sister, save me. Chapter 227 The Adventures of Pinocchio. Hearing Emily asking for help, Lilith was furious. HMPH. Stop it. I heard from Pinocchio that the sister you called when you were fighting the sea monster wasn't me, right? Lilith sighed. Don't you think about who helped you get promoted to the saint level? And you turned around and called another woman sister. I thought Wright was heartless enough, but I didn't expect you to be the same. Really? You learn from who you follow. Wright was immediately unhappy. What are you talking about? What kind of words are you talking about? I need to clarify this point. Emily, she is definitely a master with skills. Emily struggled in the barrier. Lilith. Things are not what you think. Don't listen to Pinocchio's nonsense. He is a demon of lies. You can't believe what he says. At this time, the demon of lies jumped out. Hey, what you said is wrong. Although I'm a demon of lies, I'm now sealed by the boss. As long as I lie, my nose will definitely grow longer. In turn, this has become a proof of my honesty and trustworthiness. Lilith, what this woman said just now is all lies. I'm too familiar with this smell. At this time, Alice also came out holding her little bear and saw Emily hanging in the air at a glance. Hey, what did Sister Emily do wrong again? Brother, although Sister Emily made a mistake, she at least made contributions in this defense battle. Otherwise, you can forgive her this time. Alice, my sister, you still know how to feel sorry for your sister. Wait. Emily was happy for less than 3 seconds, and she immediately reacted. Why do you directly judge that I must have made a mistake? Alice, what is the image of sister in your heart? Alice didn't say anything, just smiled sweetly. But the silence at this moment was deafening. Wright stretched out his hand to remove the barrier and caught Emily, who fell from the air. For Alice's sake, I'll let you go this time. Your body is seriously injured. It seems that forcing you to bear the power of 2 gods is still too much for you now. As he said that, Wright reached out and used the power of holy light to heal Emily, who closed her eyes with a look of enjoyment. Woo. As a magician, my body is indeed too weak. I have decided that I will further train my physical strength in the Flesh and Blood Church. Strive to become a qualified Malay magician as soon as possible. It just so happens that the Sisters of the Bloody Rose are here now. I finally have someone to keep me company. Woo woo woo, I don't have to train behind those big and strong believers anymore. Wright chuckled. He saw Emily's progress. Perhaps this girl can really fulfill her promise and become the captain of the ship that controls her own life. Okay, everyone has gone through such a big battle. It's hard work. The crisis has been resolved. Everyone go back and rest. Hearing what Light said, Lilith knew that he didn't intend to let others participate in the battle against the god of the sea. But this is reasonable. After all, the god of the sea is likely to hide near the eye of the deep sea. Ordinary people can't even go to that place. And dealing with the god of the sea and the ocean, even if you have a crushing strength, it is inevitable that it will take some effort. If others go with you, not only can they not help, but they will even be a burden. Do you want me to go with you? No, you have been injured in the dream. Fusion concepts are the top priority. You stay at home and have a good rest. After Light whispered to Lilith, he waved to Pinocchio, the Lie Demon. Come here, follow me. Okay. The Lie Demon agreed very readily this time. After all, the place they were going to this time was the deep sea ravine, where his body was sealed. If there was any problem at that time, he might be able to take the opportunity to escape. But what the Lie Demon didn't expect was that Wright actually called Unica over again. You, come with me too. No way, boss. The Lie Demon stopped Unica and said, how can she, a mortal, go to the deep sea? You should not underestimate the ancient ocean god. She has occupied the consciousness space of the sea for so long. Maybe she has gained some special benefits. This kind of thing must be prevented. I'm not very interested in the life of this little girl, but you don't have to make it more difficult for yourself, right? The Lie Demon knew very well that he and Wright were absolutely in the same boat. If he capsized in the gutter, he would have laughed out loud before, but now he had to worry about whether he could withstand the blow. After all, who knows what his fate would be if Wright fell. Being a little boy made of wood for the rest of his life would be too miserable. One of the things the ancient ocean god relies on now is the witch power in Gladys' body, and the owner of this power is obviously Unica. That is, the sea witch in the fairy tale. Therefore, if you want to restrain the opponent's trump card, Unica is necessary. What's more, with my protection, Unica has no safety issues at all. She only needs to do her job as a tool, that is, to show up on time, and at the place and time she should appear, and she will do her duty. Unica bypassed the puppet, her eyes were firm. Mr. Wright, I'm willing to go. Whether it is for Harbor City or Gladys. I live by the sea, and have great awe of the sea. But if this sea god is really so crazy, I'm willing to lend a hand to you and destroy her. Otherwise, we, and other people on the seaside, will never have peace. Wright laughed. Okay, well said. Got, use it if it is useful, and don't use it if it is useless. But if a god deserves to die, then she should die. You pack up, and we will set off immediately. Seeing Unica turn and leave, the Lie Demon looked at Light awkwardly. Boss, this battle is also very dangerous. Can you release some of your abilities for me, so that I can at least protect myself? My body is really suffocating. Light looked at him and suddenly laughed. Mr. Lie, have you read the fairy tale The Adventures of Pinocchio? Lie was stunned for a moment and nodded. Seriously, have you read it? Lie thought about it again and finally shook his head. Then I suggest you read it word by word. By the way, I'll give you a little tip. Light raised a finger and pointed at Pinocchio's nose. Witches can use the power of fairy tales. Why can't you? Power never disappears out of thin air. It's just that you haven't found the right way to use it. Think about it, Pinocchio. Chapter 228 Dive. Keep diving. The harbor city, which had just experienced a war, was in urgent need of rest. The people who had no idea what was going on should be comforted. Wright did not choose to attack the deep sea trench with great fanfare, but took Unica and Pinocchio with him, and went into battle lightly. They set out from the harbor, and arrived at the target location at the fastest speed, and then dived towards the bottom of the sea. A powerful holy light shield bloomed from Wright's body, protecting Unica and the puppet. They kept sinking and falling in the sea. The beautiful sea view fascinated Unica. After all, this was her first time diving into the sea. Pinocchio was still immersed in what Wright had told him before, and tried to understand how to use Pinocchio's power. For this reason, he went to Emily to borrow the fairy tale collection and studied the adventures of Pinocchio seriously. Boss, I saw that in the adventures of Pinocchio, Pinocchio also fell into the sea and was eaten by a whale. So, do you want to take me with you? Is this part of your plan? Light looked at him speechlessly. So part of my plan is to conquer the god of the ocean in the depths of the sea. Throw you to a giant whale? I beg you, don't just look at the surface content. It seems superficial. You have to understand the central idea that the author wants to express through the deep meaning between the lines. Understand the spirit. Haven't you done reading comprehension? No. If not, keep reading. After hearing Light's words, the Devil of Lies was very angry, but because he couldn't beat Light, he could only choose to forbear. After flipping through the pages for a while, the Devil of Lies asked again, I saw in the story that Pinocchio turned into a donkey because he was too playful. So what does it have to do with you, the Devil of Lies, that they turned into donkeys because they were too playful? Can you read some serious parts? Wright grabbed the fairy tale collection and shook the book. The core of this story is that Pinocchio changed from a puppet that can talk and move to a real little boy. If you want to understand Pinocchio's ability, read this part carefully. Think about it carefully and polish it carefully. The Devil of Lies nodded repeatedly, but his face was full of confusion. Wright shook his head helplessly and handed the book to the cute and well-behaved Unica sitting beside him. Unexpectedly, Unica not only did not put the book away, but also became interested. She reached out and turned the book to the chapter of the Daughter of the Sea and began to read it carefully. Wrapped in the holy light shield, the three people continued to descend. The beautiful scenery and the sea around them gradually became eerie and terrifying, making people terrified at a glance. The Devil of Lies stood beside Wright, looking at the dark deep sea, and couldn't help but sigh in amazement. Strange, it stands to reason that we are so bright now. We should be a very dazzling star in the deep sea world. Those deep sea monsters should come over and swallow us up fiercely. Wright was speechless after hearing his words. I say, Mr. Pinocchio, is there a possibility that our combination is actually very powerful? Those monsters in the Sea of God were scared away by mere fear. Do you really want to be swallowed by a giant whale, or do you have Emily syndrome? Okay. I really can't understand the true intention of this story. I'm going to give up. Boss, can you just tell me? Wright looked at him like this and sighed helplessly. I tell you, it won't help you at all. It's like I have introduced the functions of an all-chemical driven sports car clearly, but an apprentice who has never touched a steering wheel can't get on the road. But you are my employee, so I will give you a hint of the standard answer. After careful consideration, Wright decided to help the Devil of Lies again. After all, this battle is a battle with the ancient ocean god in the endless deep sea. Although the gap in strength is obvious, in order to prevent a capsize in the ditch, it is indeed necessary to improve the strength of the entourage. At the end of the story, Pinocchio rescued his father and passed the test of the Blue Fairy. With the help of the Blue Fairy, he completely changed from a little puppet to a little boy. But have you ever thought that a little puppet boy is a huge lie in itself? Just some wooden nails can not only move and talk like a real person, but also become the ultimate human being. So Pinocchio himself is a lie. But this lie finally came true. Is a lie that comes true still a lie? The Devil of Lies, you like to weave lies, and then use new lies to cover up the old lies. In this way, lies are like a bunch of grapes, more and more. In the end, the branches are completely crushed, and they fall to the ground, and fall to pieces. So your lies are very low level, because they are doomed to fail from the moment they are born. But in this world, there are many successful lies, some lies that are finally realized. Lies can be exposed, but they can also become true. When lies are not lies, you may find a new use for your abilities. At this point, Wright pointed his finger at Pinocchio's nose. For example, you lied today and said eggs were 3.2 yuan per pound. As a result, by chance, eggs really became 3.2 yuan per pound. So, did your nose get longer or shorter? After hearing what Wright said, the lie demon seemed to have caught some inspiration, but it was gone in a flash. But this was a good start after all. Finally, in the darkness, Wright landed on the seabed with Unica. Right, I seem to have sensed something. Unica locked onto the other party immediately and immediately informed Wright, if I'm not mistaken, Gladys is not far away. If she is still Gladys. Wright reached out and rubbed her head. Don't worry, she will be fine. After all, half of the witch's power is not vegetarian. If the sea god wants to deal with her, if it triggers the emergency measure set up by the Tower of Truth, it will explode. At that time, who knows what will happen. Faced with a powerful enemy, the sea god may not have the courage to do so. As Wright expected, after they landed, a man walked out of a huge shell in the deep sea. You really chased here? Yes, I must kill you completely, before I can sleep peacefully. While speaking, Wright walked out of the protective holy light. With a slide of his finger, he set up a living space for Unica and Pinocchio. Wright stood in the deep sea and stretched himself. Don't step out of the circle I drew for you. Wait for me to get some vegetarian food for you. Chapter 229. The Sea is a Sea. The sudden appearance of Poseidon was completely different from the previous 2 times. Her behavior also confirmed a conjecture of Wright. That is, she had no way to retreat, and was forced into a desperate situation. Facing her own all-round erosion, her space for activities was constantly shrinking. Now, apart from facing the enemy head-on, there were no other cards to play. Wright did not take it lightly despite such a good situation. In this case, we still need to be careful that the other party will jump over the wall when desperate. After all, the ancient ocean god can be regarded as a thorough beast. He has been planning so far, and he can be regarded as a sinister and ruthless character. In the absence of a way out, he is likely to do some crazy things. In particular, the body of the Little Mermaid Princess Gladys is still in the hands of the other party. Looking at the familiar yet unfamiliar body, Wright frowned. No matter what you did is unforgivable. Don't think you can get away with hiding in my friend's body. I will definitely destroy you. However, the sea god laughed and pointed at her body. You, Wright, the holy sin of the Holy Light Church. After resurrecting from this body, I also got her memory. To be honest, I really didn't expect that during my sleep, a guy like you who is completely unmeasurable would appear. This may be the biggest loophole in my plan. But it doesn't matter, I still came to this step. You may be really strong, but the mermaids are the providers of my resurrected bodies. This has been clear since their creation. Want to separate me from her? You are too whimsical. Wright's face was gloomy. He knew that the other party was not bluffing. The underlying defects of the mermaids are the same as the problems the elves are experiencing now. The underlying root problems make them destined to become each other's bodies. However, Wright did not think so, and did not want to think so. Since you said with a smug look on your face that the mermaids were specially designed with functions when they were first created, there is no way in this world to save you. At this moment, Wright's anger was burning. He flashed in front of the sea god and grabbed its neck. A god like you is really damned. Don't be afraid, I will treat you well. Pop Gladys's figure suddenly turned into a stream of seawater and merged into the sea. After a wave of energy, her figure condensed again. At this time, she picked up the trident refined by seawater and stabbed at Wright. Wright also pinched a light spear and rushed over to kill the opponent. Although it was just an early test, Wright still successfully gained the upper hand. Seeing that he could not defeat Wright, the sea god immediately activated his witch power. A large number of seawater alchemy creations quickly rushed towards Wright. Facing these menacing toys, Wright did not tolerate them at all, and directly picked up the light spear to completely defeat them. At this moment, Unica in the halo suddenly began to change her hands, and she actually imitated the other party, and produced a large number of marine alchemy products. Such a scene surprised Wright. He was very sure that Unica didn't know so many sea alchemy skills before. Unexpectedly, Unica could learn the alchemy of the sea without a teacher. Or maybe it was the mutual attraction between the witch's powers. Enough, Unica. Next, the power is cut off. Wright did not intend to use her ability, but had other preparations. He used his light spear to force the enemy back to a certain distance. Then, He was shocked and told the twin gods of holy light far away in the divine world through prayer. Let them stop playing and get down to business. Then, the news came from the divine world to the dream gap. Alice, who had been waiting here for a long time, directly activated the failure of the fairy tale town, aiming at the daughter of the sea. At the same time, the magic power of a large number of witches was cut off, and they completely lost the ability to replenish. Alice breathed a sigh of relief as she looked at the gradually overflowing witch power. Fortunately, she had made preparations before, otherwise she would not be able to handle it properly. Finally, she could help her brother. Sister Jonah, the plan was successful. Please tell my brother. However, the fact is that there is no need to report or ask anything. At this time, Wright was very keenly aware of the change in the opponent's strength. Her tide-like offensive just now slowed down, and all kinds of strange alchemical creations of the Sea Clan also became sparse. It was already a situation where the income was not enough to cover the expenditure. Seeing this, Wright immediately rushed forward and stabbed him with a spear of light. Poseidon looked at Wright in surprise. You? How dare you? I'm a holy evil. Although I don't believe in the Holy Light Church, I'm also a member of the Holy Light System. For the Holy Light System, whether a person is dead or not is not up to him, but we have the final say. Do you think that, after occupying her body, you can threaten me? I will never do such a thing as throwing a rat into a rat. The reason why I dragged it with you until now is to see if you have hidden something, or have any other killer moves. It seems that I thought too much. Since you have nothing worth showing, just leave now. God of flesh and blood. The shadow of the evil god of flesh and blood appeared from behind Wright again, and then punched the Poseidon in the stomach. Her soul was torn out directly, and separated from Gladys' body. After all, both of them are gods, and at the same time, they do not have the divine nature and divine fire. Poseidon lost it after his fall, and the god of flesh and blood is still in the ascending space, and has not ignited the divine fire to condense the divine nature. Their situations are similar, which is why they can succeed with one strike. Light reached out and caught Gladys, throwing her body back into the circle of light. Unica was quick to reach out and catch her good sister. Looking at the soul of the god of the sea floating on the bottom of the sea, Light's eyes were full of contempt. Honestly, as a god, I feel sad for you to have fallen to such a state. But fortunately, your road to becoming a god has come to an end, and now let me draw a perfect end to your life. Right here, declare the complete fall of the god of the sea. Goodbye, sea. Goodbye, god. The sunlight great sword appeared in Light's hands, shining with an unprecedented powerful aura. Light looked at each other and sang in a low voice. The fifth brilliance deep blue. In an instant, a blue light bloomed on the bottom of the sea, completely covering everything. The biting cold was about to freeze everything. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 230 A Snow on the Seafloor. Under the blooming of blowlight, the sunlight sword twisted and transformed into a spear. It was slender, noble and elegant, and chilling. Light has more than one color, and people have more than one emotion. Wright always believed that there was a certain corresponding relationship between the two. Just like the first brilliant color, scarlet, corresponds to anger, and the fifth brilliant color, deep blue, corresponds to calmness. Absolute concentration, absolute calmness, and absolute coldness, excluding all factors, focusing on a bone-chilling coldness. But, it was still murderous intent. Murderous intent is like this. Sometimes the anger is like fire, as if it wants to burn the whole world to ashes, before it can be calmed. Sometimes it is as cold as ice, and the more murderous intent surges, the calmer and more cruel it becomes. Clang. Wright rushed out at the moment when the sunlight was transformed and nailed the ancient ocean god in the form of Soul to the spot with one shot. She looked at Wright in surprise, her eyes full of confusion. You know, she is now in the state of Soul. For material life forms, it is a form of energy that is nothingness. However, Wright's attack not only worked on her soul, but also froze her. The ancient ocean god even felt that the speed of her soul energy flow was decreasing rapidly. She had to use her remaining divine power to shatter the ice. At the same time, she trembled and quickly merged into the sea. This was her last means of survival. As long as she merged with the endless sea water, no matter how powerful the enemy was, it would be impossible for him to destroy the water in the entire ocean to kill her. However, this little calculation had been anticipated by Wright. The power of the deep blue sunlight was something that the ancient ocean god could not imagine at all. As a god, you only have yourself in your eyes. For your own benefit, you can sacrifice anything in this sea. So selfish, so crazy. How can I tolerate such a god? Wright shook the deep blue spear in his hand, and waves of cold currents spread rapidly in the sea with him as the center. In a blink of an eye, it caught up with the speed of the spread of the soul of the ocean god. Freeze the god right here. With a click, countless tiny ice fragments formed in the sea. Each ice shard accurately froze a part of the sea god's soul, forming large and small snowflakes. Wright raised his spear, and these snowflakes flew back in the sea, forming an extremely beautiful and spectacular snowflake in the sea. With this move, Wright directly built a snowman deep in the sea. Do you know? Wright held the gun and walked towards the snowman step by step. The murderous intent like the abyss and the sea surged again and again, like a tsunami covering the sky and the sun, making people despair. The sea god who turned into a snowman was terrified, and the fear almost drowned her completely. The happiness of all living things is very similar to snowflakes. They are fragile and tiny, as if a breath of hot air can completely melt them. But you don't know, or you, a high and mighty god, have never cared about, that each snowflake has a different shape. There are no two exactly the same people in this world, nor are there exactly the same snowflakes. There is no exactly the same happiness. Each individual is unique, and their happiness is unique. But a god, like you, doesn't know how to cherish it. Bang! Wright nailed the snowman to the ground with a shot, and the absolute cold turned the snow into ice, which condensed again into the form of the ice of the soul just now. To be honest, I don't want to be a hero who saves the world. Even when I was playing games before, I only liked to be a scenery collector. What I like to see most is the thousands of miles of ice and snow, the silver-clad world, and you, the god of the ocean. You are an eyesore, damn, and unforgivable guy. You ruined this beautiful snow scene. And you ruined the happiness of countless unique items. Wright turned the handle of the spear, and the god of the ocean suddenly let out a painful wail. This god of the ocean from ancient times never thought that today, now, someone would judge her for her numerous crimes, and make her pay for everything she had done in the past. Those who play with life should be punished. Those who trample on beauty should be sentenced to death. Wright shook his arms, and with a click, the soul of the god of the ocean exploded again, turning into countless ice chips. Looking at the wonder of snow flying under the sea, Wright did not have the slightest appreciation. Countless creatures of the entire sea race survived, multiplied, created civilization, and worked hard to survive. However, because the ocean god had a backup plan for his resurrection, he divided the ranks out of thin air and distinguished between the noble and the humble, causing countless misfortunes and tragedies. Although the Sea Emperor family is the top royal family of the sea race, because of the resurrection of the sea god, they have been carrying the fear of having their worlds wiped out and their bodies sacrificed since birth. And the deception that was compiled from the root of life has prompted them to kill each other to devour the power of the enemy. Or this is just a means of resurrection that may or may not be used. The actions of the ancient ocean god are not much different from the various crimes committed by the Tower of Truth. So light must kill her. Looking at the ocean god who has basically lost consciousness because of the shattering of the god's chaos again, Light put away the sunlight that has been accumulating energy for a long time. You are a dregs of the sea, the scum among the gods. You are not worthy of me to send you off with the last blow. After saying that, Light snapped his fingers. God of flesh and blood, swallow her. A mass of flesh and blood suddenly gushed out of Wright's body and then turned into a bloody mouth, swallowing the soul of the god of the ocean and the sea water in one gulp. Then the powerful divine power rushed out, and the god of flesh and blood swelled up into a huge sea monster, hideous and twisted. After all, the god of the ocean is an ancient god, and a powerful existence, that almost became the god of rules. Although her divine fire was extinguished and her divine nature was broken, a lean camel is bigger than a horse. Not to mention, after the third generation of the sea god left, she quietly devoured a large amount of the sea clan's faith power to prepare for her resurrection. This time, all the benefits were given to the evil god of flesh and blood raised by Wright. But after all, it did not ignite the divine fire, let alone the divine nature. With such a huge divine power, it can only digest and absorb it by growing rapidly. Fortunately, the growing flesh and blood can freely control the size. After expanding to the extreme, it quickly shrank back and reattached to Wright's arm. Feeling the powerful energy coming from his forearm, Wright smiled with satisfaction. You know, this part of the sea god's soul not only includes a large amount of divine energy, but also the most primitive sea god's authority. As the first generation of the true sea god, her fall caused a vacancy in the sea god priesthood in this world. This also led to the emergence of the second and third generations of sea god. This is a kind of inheritance, but at the same time, her fall was not complete, so there is still a small part of the sea god's authority that has not been taken away by the two sea gods behind. After the third generation of sea god left, she quietly took back part of the sea god's authority. All of this time, all the benefits were given to the god of flesh and blood. As long as Wright is willing, he can completely cultivate the flesh and blood evil god as the fourth generation of sea god in the next step. Once successful, it will be easy to include the Sea Clan, whose population base is no less than the total human population, into his own faith vote bank. As for the issue of the world's authority and faith, Wright is not worried at all. After all, the Holy Light twin gods are all his own people. Wright actually had some ideas a long time ago, such as letting the twin goddesses of Holy Light establish the Divine Court in this world as the main god of the world. Use the gods of other sects for your own use and grant them divine power and priesthood. This will not only better govern the world and let professional gods do professional things, it will also better consolidate your position and make the belief system more perfect. At the beginning, when Wright constructed the Halo system, based on the God of Light, he already had this idea. The power of Holy Light can be exchanged to become the elemental magic power to release any magic. But if the Divine Court is really established, then this exchange will be able to exchange the power of the gods in different divine courts. At that time, the believers of the Divine Court will be particularly powerful. They believe in the twin goddesses of Holy Light, but can use the divine spell of the sea god in the sea and receive the blessing of the sea god. All the complicated parts are handled and optimized by the Divine Court, and the believers as users will only have benefits and no disadvantages. They can believe in one god or multiple gods at the same time. After all, the Divine Court system is there, and everyone's faith will be accurately included in the pockets of various gods. Moreover, believing in a god can obtain the protection and blessings of all the gods in the entire Divine Court. It can be called a card for the world of faith. Wright had never mentioned this to Jonah and Afra before, mainly because this world is already the one-man show of the Holy Light Goddess. The other gods have long gone to the next world to continue grazing, and the ones left here are some inferior evil gods. Not to mention the confusion of doctrines, the divine power and priesthood are even more chaotic. Not to mention, their believers are completely trying to grab the base of the Holy Light Goddess. Letting the other party in is simply putting mice in the granary, and the ratio of male and female is half and half. But the sea god is different, especially now that the third generation of the sea god has run away, and the authority of the sea god in this world is basically stable. Perhaps, the god of flesh and blood can temporarily replace the position of the sea god, and become the first member to join the Divine Court. It's not that Wright is whimsical, it's really the huge population and the vast number of beliefs of the entire Sea Clan, which is really too tempting. The power of faith is hard currency, no matter where it is placed. And once the Divine Court is established, there will be more vacancies for the Divine Throne. With more opportunities, there will be more bargaining chips. As long as it works well, the Divine Court will definitely bring positive effects to the world. Wright has always regarded this world as his own private backyard. If he can make this world better, he will naturally be very happy. However, just as Wright was still sketching the beautiful picture of Divine Court governing the world in his mind, Gladys screamed behind him, "Mr. Wright, don't kill her. She took out insurance to protect herself." Once she dies, the valve of the world will be destroyed. The Dragon Clan's world-destroying action will be launched in advance. Wright turned his head in surprise and looked at Gladys. What did you say, Mr. Wright? When the god of the ocean occupied my body, I also got some of her memories, by the way. Gladys struggled to stand up from Unica's arms. Her face was pale and her breath was weak. Obviously, she had not fully recovered. But this matter is too important and must be said as soon as possible. Otherwise, the world is in danger. Mr. Wright, there is a place deep in the sea, which is called the World Valve. It is the most vulnerable place in the world, and it is also the entrance and exit of the world to the outside world. It's like the mouth of a glass bottle. Once that place is opened, even if it is not a god, individuals outside other worlds can enter this world through that opening. And the substances in this world will also leak out of the world. But these are not the most important. The most important thing is, once this gap is opened, it means that the dragons of the Dragon Clan have a passage to escape from this world. They will leave here as quickly as possible, and before leaving, they will activate the last world-destroying switch. I don't know why the Dragon Clan has a world-destroying switch. But according to the memory left by the sea god, once the world-destroying switch is activated, then this world will be completely destroyed and collapse into the purest energy. Even if there are survivors, the huge energy will attract the peeping of powerful individuals, and then there will be looting and competition. Therefore, it is basically impossible for there to be survivors in such a world-destroying act. Mr. Wright, you must not say that the god of the sea will be wiped out. Otherwise, her arrangement in the world valve will take effect. Wright's expression was a little embarrassed, but I have already killed her. Why didn't this guy say it at the beginning? Even if he wanted to threaten me, I could have arranged it in advance. The lying demon on the side was also helpless. Why don't you give him a chance to say it? He said the killer move right at the beginning. It took less than 5 minutes from meeting to killing the other party. Blame me? Do you know what it means? That the villain dies because of talking too much? Do you know that in this situation, where you are sure of victory, if you delay too long, it is easy for the other party to find a flaw? I don't want to capsize in the gutter. The lying demon grabbed his non-existent hair. Boss, are we villains? Are the theories you said really applicable to us? Okay. Stop talking. Wright waved his hand. 1,000 mistakes. It's all the employee's fault. Even if it's the boss's fault, it's because the employees failed to stop the boss from making mistakes immediately. So, it's still your fault. But I'm an open-minded boss and I won't pursue your mistakes. What's more, now is not the time to pursue who is right and who is wrong. We should explore where the valve of this world is. Boom. The sea answered Wright's question with a deafening explosion. Chapter 231 The Mastermind appears. Shock, unprecedented shock, as if the whole world was shaking. Wright locked the position of the world valve almost instantly, and then turned into a stream of light, and traveled through the seabed. In the blink of an eye, he had arrived at the world valve. Although he didn't know what means the god of the ocean used, the space here was indeed broken. The hole leading to the outside of the world was madly swallowing the sea water. Various meaningless roars came from outside the hole, and the dangerous breath poured into this world wantonly. Even if there was no dragon island, and no dragon of the end, just this underwater hole leading to the outside of the world would constantly trigger a wave of disasters that could destroy the world. It is necessary to control this place before the situation becomes more serious. The snow presses the branches low. Although it is low, it can't touch the mud. Once the red sun rises, still, as high as the sky, as Wright sang loudly, the deep blue sunlight in his hand burst into an unprecedented cold light. Wright grabbed the handle of the gun with his backhand and threw it towards the hole in the world. Only a little cold light arrived first, and finally burst into a bright deep blue light. A large amount of seawater froze, and even the void of the world was covered by ice, forming an absolutely frozen state. Although it was only temporary, it solved the urgent problem. Wright stood on the seabed, looking at the huge ice blue flower that was constantly spreading and being crushed by the turbulent flower the void, and frowned slightly. Well, find a plug. At this time, Pinocchio, who had just swam to Wright's side, happened to hear his mumbling. Without saying a word, he turned around and left. Wright saw him at a glance and hooked him casually. Unexpectedly, the other party actually surged with a powerful conceptual power, which offset Wright's summons. Although he was not controlled by the spell, Pinocchio thought again and again, and chose to come over obediently. Boss, don't think of using me as a bottle stopper anymore. Sure old pie, have you recovered your strength? Ahem, I was sealed in the eye of the world sea. Now that it's blown up, I've naturally escaped. Boss, isn't your seal too overbearing? I originally thought that after my main body escaped, I, as a distracted thought, would be swallowed up anyway. In this way, I can break away from your control and return to my main body completely. I was even prepared to be abandoned by my main body and my consciousness dissipated in the end. But when my main body escaped from the seal, it was actually pulled out directly into this puppet body. How did you do it? Primary key. What? My name is Wright, but I have another familiar name. What is it? The lying demon was stunned for a moment. Holy sin, this is not your holy name. Ah, I understand. You. Wright grinned, his eyes full of teasing. You think I just gave you a random name, but I didn't. That's right, Pinocchio is the holy name I gave you. I know that you demons, vampires, and even some gods are reluctant to mention your real name. Because once your real name is known by someone with bad intentions, it is easy to be calculated. You are a demon of lies, but even Lilith doesn't know your specific name. If you don't know, then there is no need to know. I will give you a holy name directly. With the holy name as the main key, my seal on you is the seal on your body. The reason why it didn't work before is because the original seal was not ended. So, whether the CI exploded, or you found a way to escape by yourself, from the moment you were called Pinocchio, you can't escape. From one seal to another, it is absolutely seamless, more seamless than a seamless steel pipe. Enjoy it all. The demon of lies gritted his teeth. I really want to thank you. Boss, don't look at me like that. This is your destiny. Look at you. You are born to be a part-time worker. You will definitely be able to work for a lifetime. This is the most vicious curse I have ever heard since I was born. What's wrong? Just be happy that you can work. Do you know why people like to cut leeks? Because leeks are delicious and can be sold for money. And they grow well, and new ones will grow after they are cut. So, leeks are worth being cut. Guess what are those things that taste bitter, can't be sold for money, won't grow after being cut, or just lie flat, and can't be cut by people? The lying demon swallowed his saliva. What is it? It's weeds. A kind of weed. Why are people like you so keen on saving the world? As a demon, I think you should be the destroyer of the world. I'm indeed a holy light knight who likes to pass by. Light turned his head and looked at the valve of the world. I still want to live in this place. It's too much. Are we still getting along with our neighbors? Rabbits don't eat grass near their nests. Pinocchio sneered, but your rabbit nest is going to be destroyed by someone now. Light didn't say anything and began to gesture to Pinocchio. Pinocchio couldn't understand why a wooden man like him felt a chill, but to be on the safe side, he quickly explained. Boss, you don't have to think about me. I can't be a plug in the world valve. At the beginning, I was sealed in the Eye of the Sea, which was itself a conspiracy of the Dragon Clan. He teamed up with the devil and tricked me in the end and nailed me in the Eye of the Sea with the hand of the goddess of holy light. In fact, their purpose is very simple. There is no shortage of lies in this world. Although I'm sealed, I will accumulate strength because of the lies that continue to appear in the world. In order to escape, I will definitely destroy the entire seal. At that time, the world valve, the Eye of the Sea, will be destroyed. At the same time, the Dragon Clan will take the opportunity to launch a world-destroying disaster. All this was calculated by these giant dragons from the beginning. I'm the explosive part of this time bomb. As for the timer, it is probably the lie of all living beings in this world. Every lie is a countdown to the destruction of the world. Every liar is an accomplice in the destruction of this world. Haha, these guys are really bad taste. So boss, don't think of me as a plug. Unless you want to make the hole in this world bigger. After listening to the long speech of the devil of lies, Wright smiled. You think too much. I never intended for you to be the plug from the beginning. I'm just curious. Why hasn't the giant dragon escaped that you mentioned happened yet? Huh? Yes. The Devil of Lies was also full of question marks. He looked towards the top of the world hole. Although they were in the deep sea, as conceptual level strongmen, they could still perceive the things on the sea surface clearly. After the world valve was detonated, the Dragon Island, which had disappeared and hidden for nearly 2 months, unexpectedly appeared again. It was still suspended in its original position, and the island was very stable, and it seemed that it was not affected by the world hole. However, as Wright said, the Dragon Island that disappeared and appeared out of thin air was surprisingly quiet. As the shepherding dragons among the dragons, they have now completed their mission. Now, the switch to destroy the world has been pressed, and the whole world will be blown to pieces by the Dragon of the End. Even if they are from the same dragon clan, if they don't escape now, they will just be buried with this colorful world later. After all, the Dragon of the End is just a fragment of the concept of the Dragon of Destruction, not to mention that the status of the Shepherd Dragon clan itself is not as good as that of the Eternal Dragon clan. The most important thing is to run away from the world's hole now. According to the calculation of the Devil of Lies, there should be groups of dragons now, scrambling to rush to the world's hole. That kind of magnificent scene is the prelude to the destruction of the world. But why is it so quiet? No, it is more of a dead silence. Wright and the Devil of Lies looked at each other, and a trace of worry and vigilance flashed in their eyes. We are not with Unica, this is a lie. The Devil of Lies suddenly reached out and grabbed Wright, and then used his own power. The next moment, the two disappeared out of thin air. At the same time, they suddenly appeared in front of Unica and Gladys. Wow. Unica was startled, and almost fell out of the holy light circle drawn by Wright. If she really fell out of such a deep sea bed, Wright might really have to go to the underworld to rescue her. Great Leopai, you learned to use the power of puppets so quickly? Wright patted his shoulder in approval, expressing his affirmation. The lie demon rubbed his nose. No big deal. But boss, are we going now? Let's go. There's no time to lose. Fortunately, the main body is unsealed. Otherwise the power of lies would not be enough. The lie demon reached out and grabbed Unica, and motioned Gladys to grab his body herself. We are not on Dragon Island. This is a lie. But, this time, the lie demon consumed a lot of power. As he said, if the main body had not just returned, it would not be possible to do this. The four of them disappeared from the deep sea again, and the next moment they passed through the defense formation of Dragon Island, and came to a high peak on the island. When Unica and Gladys opened their eyes, they couldn't help but scream in shock at the scene in front of them. What is going on here? So many dragon corpses. These are all high-level dragons. Gladys covered her mouth. As a member of the royal family of the sea race, she had dealt with Dragon Island many times before, so she could naturally distinguish the strength and rank of the dragons. But all this was meaningless. The entire Dragon Island was now littered with corpses, and there was no living creature. Young dragons, adult dragons, elder dragons, ancient dragons. All the dragons died tragically on the spot. Wright looked at this terrible scene, and took a deep breath. From the bloodstains, it seems that these dragons have been dead for about a month. It should be when Dragon Island disappeared after the first fog. At this point, Wright looked at the Devil of Lies. Feeling the boss's gaze, Pinocchio waved his hands repeatedly. Boss, you think too highly of me. If I had this strength a month and a half ago, I wouldn't have to work hard to lay out in Harbor City. Wright rubbed his brows, and his mind kept sorting out all the information after the holy day. Gradually, he seemed to have found some clues. Old Pie, how do you know the location of the underground workshop of the Truth Workshop in Harbor City? How do you know that the underground alchemy workshop has the things you want? The Devil of Lies was stunned for a moment. It was those people in the Tower of Truth who told me. Who in the Tower of Truth told you? The Sage of Reason. Why did the Sage of Reason tell you this? He just mentioned it. No, now that you ask me, boss, I seem to remember it. At that time, they communicated with me through a homemade demon summoning array. The array was very mysterious, and the Sage of Reason was in such a state of exhaustion and incompleteness at that time, that he should not be able to open it alone. Well, at least there must be someone who is as capable as him to help. When Wright heard this, he clenched his fists. That is to say, before the holy day, there was a mysterious person who was on par with the Sage of Reason. This mysterious person not only assisted the Sage of Reason in communicating with you, but also participated in the subsequent attack on the Holy City. Your escape and your subsequent layout in Harbor City were actually guided and helped by this mysterious person. The Devil of Lies scratched his head. But, I have never come into contact with this so-called mysterious person. Isn't the leader of the remnants of the Tower of Truth the Sage of Reason? You mean, the shell supported by obsession? Wright shook his head. No. Now it seems that he is just a puppet pushed to the front. The real planner, the real manipulator, the real mastermind behind the scenes. I'm afraid there is someone else. This mysterious person prompted you to attack the underground alchemy workshop in Harbor City so that you could get the necessary props. When you launched the fog for the first time, this guy took the opportunity to sneak into Dragon Island. No, it is very likely earlier, this mysterious person had already secretly controlled Dragon Island. So when the Holy Light Church rode to Dragon Island, asking how to deal with the Chimera dragon egg left by Vanessa, Dragon Island had already had problems. Otherwise, the other party would not have responded so lightly to such a blasphemy against the dignity of the dragon race. I was still wondering why the dragon race chose to shirk responsibility, which was completely inconsistent with their style of doing things. Damn, that guy actually started so early. Gladys suddenly reached out and pulled the corner of Light's clothes. Your Highness Light, I seem to have seen a vague figure in the memory of the Sea God. The magic prop that the Sea God used to blow up the world valve was given to her by the Black Shadow. Light heard halfway and suddenly gathered the light spear in his hand and smashed it in the direction behind him. Everyone realized that a half-dragon girl appeared behind them at some point. Facing Light's sudden attack, the half-dragon girl easily caught it in her hand and then crushed the light spear with a click. Light looked at the other party, narrowed his eyes, and instantly entered the combat state. It seems that you are the real mastermind behind the remnant of the truth. The half-dragon girl smiled and bowed deeply. I'm Mel, the Sage of Wisdom, one of the 3 sages of the Tower of Truth. I greet His Majesty the Holy Sin. Unica's eyes widened, and she grasped Wright's hand. Mr. Wright, she seems to be a witch too. Chapter 230 to the Mysterious Dragon Princess. After hearing what Unica said, Wright's eyes immediately became sharp. The Sage of Wisdom, one of the 3 great sages of the Tower of Truth, turned out to be a member of the Witches. Used to deal with Cinderella Jonah of the Holy Light Church. Used to deal with Snow White Scarlet of the Dark Clan. Used to deal with the Sea Witch Unica of the Sea Clan. Used to dominate the Dreamland Alice. And used to deal with the elves, Emily, who is suspected to correspond to Beauty and the Beast. 5 of the 7 witches of the Tower of Truth mentioned by Scarlet have appeared. And this Sage of Wisdom Mel in front of him, is he one of the remaining 2 witches? No, this is unreasonable. The Sage of Wisdom is a very ancient top-level executive of the Tower of Truth, and even appeared earlier than the Sage of Reason. And the witch plan was obviously implemented in the middle and late stages of the Tower of Truth. Mel can't be one of the 7 witches. Either the woman who claims to be the Sage of Wisdom is a fake, or the witch's plan actually has another hidden story. Wright is more inclined to the first possibility. After all, according to the records of the Holy See, the 3 great sages are all authentic humans. And the half-dragon girl in front of him has at least half of the bloodline of pure dragons. This doesn't make sense. But if this woman is really the Sage of Wisdom, then many things can be explained. For example, how could a down and out sea god have a magic tool that can blow up the valve of the world? For example, who can know the location of the remaining secrets of the underground alchemy workshop in Harbor City and the Tower of Truth so clearly? And who provided the technology used by the Truth Workshop to take away Unica's witch power and inject it into Gladys? The most important thing is that the half-dead Sage of Reason cannot have the energy to make the remnants of truth so powerful. There are too many mysteries that cannot be figured out, but this half-dragon girl in front of him is definitely not easy to deal with. Mel, the Wise Sage. What a great name. Light subconsciously opened his hand, but remembered that his sin light was still inserted in the hole of the world valve, so he had to pinch out a holy sword. With the other hand, he summoned his holy shield, the goddess's embrace. Your Highness Light, do you really want to be my enemy? The half-dragon girl's tail bent and supported herself on the ground, and she sat down and crossed her legs. A pair of vertical pupils unique to the dragon race kept looking at Light. It's such a rich and powerful soul power. No wonder so many witches gather around him. He is simply a walking witch magnet. I think you are wrong. I'm so attractive because of my handsome appearance and elegant connotation. Wright pointed the lightsaber in his hand directly at the other party. Don't beat around the bush. What do you want to do by killing these dragons? What about the dragon of the end? You blew up the world valve, released the demon of lies, and promoted the dragon's plan to destroy the world. You really hate this world that gave birth to you and raised you. The wise sage smiled. I don't have such a big opinion of this world. I just helped with these things. Even if I wasn't there, these things would have happened, but not so quickly. Why did you blow up the CI? Of course, it was to trigger the switch of the dragon to destroy the world as soon as possible. Why did you kill these dragons? Of course, it was to make the strength of this dragon of the end strong enough. As for my real purpose, it's not time to tell you now. Mr. Light, I'm really surprised that you can subdue the devil of lies and enter Dragon Island. But I advise you that some things are better left alone. If you get too involved, it will not be a good thing for you and the people around you. Brother. Alice's voice suddenly rang in Light's ears. She was talking to Light through the scarecrow in the farmyard of Dreamcrack. After Unica said that the other party was one of the witches, Light tried to let the devil of lies inform Alice to use the authority of Fairy Tale Town to cut off the other party's witch power. This trick has been proven to be effective when fighting the sea god just now. Now if we do the same, I think we can also control this half-dragon girl. As long as there is no troublesome thing like the witch power, a mere half-dragon, even if the strength is at the level of a god, is not worth mentioning. I have used the power of Fairy Tale Town, but I didn't detect any fluctuations in the power of witches. Brother, are you sure that the other party is really a witch? If so, I think her story may not be included. Wright directly denied this conjecture. It's impossible. The source of witch power is the widely circulated story. If her story is very niche, or even no one has heard of it, then she can't have power at all. Well, then I'll try to search again. It seems that the result you got in exchange for delaying time is not ideal. The dragon tail of the wise sage swung suddenly, and the whole person rushed towards Wright like a spring. Old Peel, take them away. Wright did not retreat but advanced, raised the holy shield, and launched a brutal charge towards the other party. The two sides collided with each other, and the half-dragon girl was directly slapped away by the black shield that looked like a door panel. But she flapped her wings, turned back from the air, and kicked the holy shield. The blow was so powerful that Wright retreated again and again, and smashed the shield to the ground to stop the decline. As expected of a dragon, your strength is unparalleled. You took a hit from me and acted like nothing happened. You were able to launch a counterattack in the blink of an eye. Wright shook his shoulders, his fighting spirit high. Holy glory Dao Ki surged all over his body, and then it rose to holy glory Dao Ki. The Sage of Wisdom shook his thick dragon tail and faced Wright without any panic. It seems that your holy weapon is unusable. In other words, in your current state, you can only reach the peak level of a legendary strongman. Of course, the fighting power of His Highness the Holy Sin cannot be calculated in that way. After all, you are still a real conceptual level strongman. It was not surprising that the Sage of the Tower of Truth knew information such as the conceptual level, but the other party mentioned this specifically, which made Wright have a bad premonition. The devil of lies next to him was also startled, and he stretched out his hand and pointed at the dragon girl. Your back was not stabbed, this is a lie. But just before the devil of lies ability took effect, a strange wave emerged from the Sage of Wisdom, directly erasing the devil of lies ability. Pinocchio's arm exploded with a bang, and the whole puppet flew backwards and fell heavily to the ground. Boss, be careful, this crazy woman has stolen the power of the 4 disaster beasts under the dragon of the end. Chapter 233, Furious Emily. The 4 calamities. Light looked at the devil of lies calmly. What are those? Unexpectedly, before the devil of lies spoke, the wise sage Mel spoke first. The so-called 4 calamities are the followers of the 4 dragons of the end, namely, annihilation, destruction, disaster, and slaughter. They are the prelude to the destruction of the world, responsible for clearing all obstacles to the destruction of the world before the dragon of the end is born, and preparing for the final moment of the end. Because they are the blood relatives of the dragon of the end, they have obtained the incomplete concept power stripped from the concept of destruction. Your Highness Light, you should know that profound and complex concepts can be split into many sub-concepts, and the sub-concepts merge with each other and eventually form a general concept. Light did not speak, of course he was very clear about this. After becoming a concept level powerhouse, if you want to become indescribable, then the concept must be as vast and profound as possible. In this way, it promotes the fight and devouring of the concept level powerhouses. Just like Lilith, she devoured the power of concepts of other concept level masters step by step, and eventually evolved into greed. Now she has devoured blasphemy and promoted to the concept of malice. She can completely split her own concept into sub-concepts and provide them to her followers or subordinates. I think the dragon of the end can do the same thing. But the special thing is that the dragon of the end is the split spirit of the dragon of destruction. The strength of the dragon of destruction is indeed terrifying enough to achieve this step with the split spirit. Thank you for answering my questions, Sage of Wisdom. Since you are so good at teaching, why don't you find a place to be a teacher? Wright shook the holy sword in his hand. In other words, you now have the means to resist the power of concepts, right? But I can feel that the part you got is very incomplete and incompatible with you. I think you can't use it to hurt the enemy at all, right? Unexpectedly, Sage of Wisdom Mel did not make any excuses, but generously admitted this. Yes, time is really tight. I can only hide this power in my body. Although I can't fight against the enemy, if someone wants to use the power of concepts to deal with me, the power in my body will feel threatened and then take the initiative to attack and resist. Wright curled his lips. He didn't expect that this kind of thing could also automatically protect its owner. You were very confident from the beginning. Wright looked at the half-dragon girl and always felt that something was strange, but he couldn't tell what was strange. But the enemy is still the enemy. None of the inhumane lunatics in the Tower of Truth are innocent, and this is a super boss. As the saying goes, if the upper beam is not straight, the lower beam will be crooked. The three great sages are the ones who deserve to die the most. Are you trying to tell me that I can't beat you now? Isn't it? Without the blessing of the power of concepts, you are only at the peak of legend now. The strength and ability of ordinary people's bodies can never be compared with my dragon body. Mr. Wright, I advise you that it is wise to leave now. Otherwise, when you want to leave, you won't be able to leave. Wright laughed. The guy who was so confident last time, the grass on his grave, is probably as high as a person now. A mere dragon girl. Even if I don't use concepts, killing you is no different from killing a chicken. After saying that, Wright turned into a stream of light and rushed up, and the light blade in his hand cooperated with the holy shield to produce a good effect. No matter how strong her half-dragon body was, no matter how amazing her dragon language magic was, she was still suppressed by Wright. But as the wise sage said, Wright, who lost the Sin-Light great sword and remained at the peak of legend, could not kill her in a short time. Although Wright had the upper hand, he had no means to win with one blow. The reason is that the body of the Sage of Wisdom is too frail. The dragon race's inherently strong physique, as well as the dragon scales that are immune to most fighting spirits and almost all magic, are even more annoying. Even though Wright used various methods to cause damage to the opponent, the dragon race's terrible recovery ability made the situation even worse. It's useless. I have already obtained your data when you fought Vanessa. Mr. Wright, Vanessa has never been the prelude to the appearance of the Sage of Reason. It was actually me who used her to test your strength. Wright hit the dragon princess onto the mountain with a shield strike, his eyes fixed on the opponent. So, the person who secretly bewitched Vanessa was actually you. If it was you, it would make sense. Needless to say, the person who put together the Holy Dragon of Light Chimera was also you, right? Humph, Vanessa was killed, and the Holy Rose has now become the Bloody Rose. And, the Black Hand and the provider and channel of the resources have not been figured out. It seems that you are the one who can't escape. Ha 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 ha, the wise man laughed very arrogantly. Yes, all this is my plan. And now, everything has come to fruition. No one can stop me. After Mel finished speaking, he immediately launched a violent attack on Wright. Dragon claws, dragon tails, ancient dragon language magic, and various dragon breath spewing. Although Wright's defense could not be broken in a short time, it was a huge and powerful fight. But unfortunately, Wright's paladin skills are very solid. The holy shield in his hand easily blocked all the opponent's attacks, and he would take advantage of the opponent's strength to slap back. The two sides fought back and forth, but anyone could see that both of them held back and did not go all out. The Sage of Wisdom was at least a demigod level fighter, and he also had the top level physical body of a giant dragon, so he was very difficult to deal with. But Wright had only used some of the paladin's fighting skills so far, and had not used many of his methods at all. Although Wright was determined to kill the opponent, he had not yet understood the opponent's purpose and motive, and could not let go of his hands and feet. He was afraid that his actions would fall into the trap set by the opponent. After all, the enemy was the Sage of Wisdom, and even the Sage of Reason and the Devil of Lies were calculated by her. Now that there is a serious lack of intelligence, it is natural to be cautious. The two of them fought back and forth, but neither of them could do anything to the other for the time being. Just as the two sides were in a stalemate, suddenly a figure rushed into the Dragon Island and swung the crowbar in his hand firmly at the forehead of the Sage of Wisdom. This solid blow made the opponent stagger. "Right, I'm here to help you." Emily turned around and kicked the dragon girl away, staring at her with unfriendly eyes. "Hey, you're a witch too." "No, that's not right. You smell a lot like a witch, but it's more intense and pure. This power is much worse than the power of a witch. Where did you come from?" The wise sage looked at Emily and was stunned at first, then laughed. "Me? I'm your creator, the initiator of the witch plan, and the witch number 0. Let me think about it. I should be considered the mother of all you witches." Boom. Emily burst out with violent murderous intent, and her expression became fierce, like a mad beast. "You are not allowed to mention that name. It turns out that you are the source of everything. Good. I finally found you." Chapter 234, Witch's Revenge. If we don't compare it with Wright, who is an exceptional case, Emily's progress can be described as crazy. This may be due to the contributions of Wright and Lilith, or the support of the powerful soul power provided by the witch plan. But Emily's own beliefs and unwavering heart are also one in a million. One of the reasons supporting this belief is the hatred and resentment towards the Tower of Truth. Wright was quick to deal with the Tower of Truth, but more or less, it was because of the disagreement in philosophy and the inherent disgust for the actions of the Tower of Truth. But Emily and other witches are the victims' deep hatred for the perpetrators. The hatred of parents is irreconcilable, and this principle is the same in any world. The harm and torture brought by the witch's curse are the endless regrets and sorrows of generations. Therefore, when the other party revealed her identity, the anger of hatred instantly devoured Emily completely. The furious Emily instantly entered a rampage state. Her domain opened and completed the resonance with her own holy weapon, and her strength was temporarily improved. She chased from the sky, raised the crowbar in her hand and smashed it towards the wise man. Mel was not afraid of Wright, so how could she be afraid of Emily, a little girl? She jumped up lightly and whipped Emily easily with a tail whip. At the same time, she raised her head and suddenly blew a strong and powerful dragon breath towards Emily in the sky. This is a lie. Seeing that Emily was about to be hit by the dragon breath, Pinocchio hurriedly used his ability again and forcibly changed Emily's position, allowing her to narrowly avoid the dragon breath. And this dragon breath continued to move forward and directly bombarded a towering peak on Dragon Island. The dragon breath with the attribute of annihilation easily cut off the towering mountain, and the giant peak that covered the sky and the sun fell from the Dragon Island in the sky and hit the sea heavily. The molten magma of the rock came into contact with the sea water, making a shrill whistle sound. Bursts of hot steam rose up and turned into rain clouds in the air. Under the heavy rain, a vast island appeared in the sea. Unica and Gladys, who witnessed all this, turned pale with fear. They had just witnessed the battle between Light and the half-dragon girl. To be honest, the battle between the two seemed ordinary. It was even a bit boring. However, when Emily was defeated in a face-to-face encounter and was almost killed by a finishing blow, they realized how dangerous the battle between Light and the other person was. The ordinary duel and probing of moves was a manifestation of caution and restraint between the two top fighters. Damn it. Emily wanted to step forward, but was slapped on the back of her head by Light. Fool, don't let your anger get to your head. Adjust yourself. She's not that strong. You're not that weak either. Show your strongest posture. You may not be without the strength to fight her, but if you continue to let your anger burn you, then you will be just a fleeting joke in front of this great sage. Emily, show her your backbone. After hearing this, Emily quickly regained her composure. She nodded solemnly to Wright, then readjusted her posture and looked at the wise sage in the sky. Unexpectedly, the wise sage Mel did not rush to attack, but flapped his dragon wings, hovered in the air, and looked down at Emily. That posture was as arrogant as an old cat playing with a mouse. Emily was not disrupted by the other party's arrogant posture. She held the crowbar upright in front of her, took a deep breath and shouted loudly, "Sister Jonah, Sister Lilith, please lend me your strength." Wright staggered and almost fell to the ground. "I'll let you show some courage. You're here to call for help, right?" Boom. A pure white holy light energy column descended from the sky, while another dark demon energy column shone from the direction of Harbor City. Black and white met again, transforming into two beautiful women of unparalleled beauty. One is holy, the other is demonic. It is worth mentioning that Lilith, who appeared in energy form, is now clearly in her complete form after being unsealed. Her figure, temperament, and charming face are comparable to those of the holy light goddess Jonah. After the two's phantoms appeared briefly, they immediately merged into Emily's body. In an instant, black and white intertwined battle armor appeared on her body, and on her head was a rotating black and white magic ring, and behind her were 12 wings, 6 black and 6 white. This is my strongest posture. Elemental armor fallen form. At this time and place, Emily once again entered the realm of demigod on earth. Looking at Emily's form, Wright was a little absent-minded for a moment, and couldn't help muttering to himself, "What the hell did I cultivate with all my hard work?" Bang! Before Wright could finish his words, Emily had already flapped her 12 wings and rushed forward. This time, both her speed and strength had made a qualitative leap. Obviously, the Sage of Wisdom was also shocked by her crazy attitude. She couldn't understand why two completely opposite forces could coexist peacefully in this girl's body. But now, she no longer had extra time to think about this problem. Emily had already rushed in front of her, swung the crowbar and smashed it towards her face. The strong wind even made the skin under the dragon scales of the half-dragon girl feel pain. She didn't dare to be arrogant and quickly dodged sideways. Emily didn't stop after her attack, but used her 6 pairs of wings to twist her body in the air. The crowbar in her hand rolled in the air with her body and hit the back of the dragon princess from a very tricky angle. Puff! The powerful blow made the Sage of Wisdom spit out a mouthful of blood. She originally thought that, even if she took the blow head on, there would be no problem, but she didn't expect that this blow would actually hurt her directly. With a bang, she fell from the sky and hit the dragon island heavily, wiping the blood from the corner of her mouth. Longji hurriedly shook the dragon wings and narrowly avoided Emily's slash from the sky. Looking at Emily, who stood up in the dust, the Sage of Wisdom finally put away his contempt. The power of malice and law are actually blended together? But why? I have the power to annihilate concepts. Any concept, rule, and law will be annihilated, so it can't work. How can you hurt me? Emily shook the crowbar in her hand and rushed up again. Obviously, she was in no mood to explain the principle of her offensive means to the other party. Pinocchio on the side saw the clue. "Boss, did you do something?" "Of course. Otherwise, do you think Emily can do this? Is it the power of emergence? I thought that emergence can only be a special effect produced by the gathering of a large number of the same thing. How come it can also happen between different things?" Wright did not answer, but just snapped his fingers. The growing flesh and blood instantly rushed out and merged with the demon of lies. "Feel it for yourself. I'm going to the bottom of the sea to solve the world whole and release the sin light. You help Emily delay the battle. Wait for me to come back and chop her up." Chapter 235, Blocking the World's Loopholes. Oh. Power is coming. The liar demon felt the beauty of the emergence ability. He himself was in charge of the concept of lies, and the flesh and blood, that group possessed the power of reality. Although the ability level of the flesh and blood evil god was relatively low, and even the laws were not complete. But under the urging of the emergence power, the truth not only possessed the power of the concept level, but also merged with the lies, and transformed into a new thing. True and false, virtual and real. An unmeasurable form was born from flesh and blood and rotten wood. It seemed to exist, and it seemed not to exist. The liar demon seemed to feel an indescribable trace of truth from it. It was a state of being. But unfortunately, he can only be used as an auxiliary now, and it is difficult to contain the enemy head on. However, what Wright wants now is for him to help Emily contain the opponent. You two, don't leave this circle. Wright used the same trick again, and drew a line on the ground, to protect Unica and Gladys. I'll be right back. Pinocchio, it's time for the boss to test you. If you can get through this project, I'll give you a promotion and a raise. Stock dividends. The devil of lies had no idea what a promotion and a raise was, nor did he know what the stock dividends were for. But inexplicably, his chest was burning with heat, as if he had been given a shot of chicken blood. Leave it to me. Boss, just go. After saying that, he rushed into the battle, using a combination of real and fake means, to help Emily avoid the opponent's attack, while restricting the actions of the Sage of Wisdom. Wright took a last look at the battle, then jumped off the Dragon Island, and rushed towards the empty world. He didn't know how many cards the Sage of Wisdom had in his hand, let alone what the other party wanted to do. Because of the destruction of the Tower of Truth, she wanted to drag the whole world, to die with her, in order to achieve the purpose of revenge. If this is her idea, then her wisdom as the Sage of Wisdom is absolutely retarded. Wright has reason to suspect that her plan has not been completed. Although the specific content is not yet known, now is not the time to investigate further. The first priority at present is to plug this huge world hole. After all this is done, there will be plenty of time to concoct this so-called wise sage. Back to the depths of the ocean trench, Wright frowned as he looked at the shrinking glacier. Before he came, he already had a crazy idea. If it succeeds, not only can the loopholes in this world be repaired, at the same time, it can also greatly increase the stability of this world. At that time, there will be no need to worry about the gods from outside the domain running to his back garden to make trouble every day. But Wright is not 100% sure about this matter, at most 98% or 90%, which can be said to be full of dangers. But for the stability of this world, you have to gamble more or less. Wright took a deep breath, and took out the sapphire from his arms. Since you were born from this world, at least make some contribution to this world. One drink and one bite. Maybe there is a destiny in the dark. After that, Wright suddenly threw the sapphire in the direction of the world hole, and at the same time, grabbed his deep blue sunlight with one hand. The moment the deep blue sunlight returned to Wright's hands, the huge glacier turned into countless ice chips, and poured out from the world hole. Seeing that the world hole was about to expand again, the sapphire also fell into the hole. When the small thumb-sized gem fell into the huge hole that was big enough to swallow the glacier, it suddenly emitted a powerful blue light. Then, thick sea fog gushed out of the hole on the seabed. Such a strange and unreasonable scene was the result Wright wanted. He quickly put away the sunlight, and then concentrated on mobilizing his vast mental power. It is very difficult and painful to communicate with the dream gap in a sober state. Even if Wright had made some arrangements in the dream, he still had a splitting headache and his breathing became rapid. Fairy Tale Town. Come to me. Wright roared and directly started the floating project of Fairy Tale Town. If the harbor city in the material world is really calculated by the devil of lies, it will eventually sink into the dream gap. Then he can get a lot of energy from it. Help him tear the spell that seals the eye of the sea in one fell swoop. After all, when something that exists in reality becomes a beautiful dream that is as fragile as bubbles in a dream, it will naturally release a lot of energy. But on the other hand, if you want to bring things in a dream to the real world, you must pay a huge amount of energy. However, Wright is smart. He didn't intend to materialize the whole fairy tale town from the beginning. He only needs to merge the fairy tale town with the sea of consciousness in the sapphire. The sea of consciousness is a real world that is sunk into a dream, but it is not completely sunken. Or to be more precise, it is like being stuck between reality and illusion. It is said to exist in reality, but it can only be entered from a dream. But it is obviously not so accurate to say that it is a dream. The world's cicada molt may be more suitable to describe its current situation. As long as enough energy is injected into it, it will have a chance to float up and turn back into the material world. And now Wright is going to use this shell to pull up the fairy tale town in the way of nesting dolls. It was like tying a large inflatable balloon to the sunken ship. Just fill the balloon with air and blow it up. Then it will naturally pull the sunken ship, fairy tale town, up slowly. Although it cannot float above the sea level, it only needs to hover in the shallow sea, and the goal will be achieved. After the plan was confirmed, Wright did not dare to slack off, but immediately chose to act. A large amount of holy light power was injected into the sea of consciousness of C. Although Afra felt a little distressed, she also knew that she had to make some choices now. Otherwise, she and Jonah might not be able to keep their positions as the main gods of the world. Fortunately, everything went smoothly, and Fairy Tale Town was pulled out of the sea of consciousness. From a beautiful dream, it actually became a real fairy tale town. A large amount of holy light power was still being injected, and the sea of consciousness had already reached its limit. After all, it was an empty shell, and it had been empty for so many years. Even with a large amount of energy replenishment, it would be difficult to return to the real world. It was like feeding a panacea to a person who had just died, and it might really save a life. But if the other person has been dead for several days, he should be prepared for burial. Even if there are more panaceas, he can't be saved. But Wright didn't plan to save him from the beginning. Here, merge into one. Wright found the right time and activated the power of emergence. He wanted to merge the nearly materialized sea of consciousness and the fairy tale town that just emerged from the dream directly together. But, in the pull of the world's emptiness, under the effect of the emergence force, the fairy tale town actually merged with the sea of consciousness and became something between the material world and the gap between dreams. The fairy tale subspace. And this newly formed subspace easily repaired the void of this world. Chapter 236 Fairy Tale Element Subspace. When the new subspace was formed, the turbulent psychic storm swept away, disturbing countless beings. The world rises and falls. Some are destroyed, some are born. Just like flowers bloom and fall, there won't be too many powerful individuals. But the subspace is different. It is a very special existence. Among the few subspaces, the most famous and most versatile one is of course the elemental subspace. There are a large number of elemental creatures living there, and it can bridge with almost all worlds. Even the gods and demons have to get energy from the elemental subspace and build their own magic spells. The world, the plane, the space, these are like villages for living. And the subspace is more like a series of energy mines to be developed. They allow life individuals in the material world to enter, but they contain more unique energy bodies. Fairy Tale Town, the Fairy Tale Energy Transfer Station built by Wright in the cracks of dreams, was originally only for the world he is in now. But now, it has been directly promoted to the fairy tale subspace under the fusion of the consciousness space of the sea. Then, it can not only collect the fairy tale energy of Light's world, but also radiate all worlds, even the entire broad world. Even the world of gods, demons, and dragons are within its scope. A huge amount of fairy tale world energy surged like a tsunami, instantly submerging the entire fairy tale subspace. In a blink of an eye, this small subspace continued to expand and fill, and countless fairy tale creatures were bred from it. Light realized that today would be a day worth remembering. Fairy tales will become a new energy configuration like many elements such as fire, ice, wind, thunder, and blood. In the future, various novel professions corresponding to advance payments will also be extended. For example, fairy tale magicians, fairy tale knights, fairy tale berserkers, etc. Of course, they may not be called this name at that time. If I'm not mistaken, this wave will be an epic enhancement of the bard. Light looked at the world hole that was filled up, and nodded with satisfaction. Now, there is no need to worry about the problem of the world gap. However, the existence of the fairy tale subspace will inevitably bring all kinds of troubles. but as the most direct beneficiary of the fairy tale subspace, this world will also become extremely powerful. At that time, even if there are villains who dare to come and invade, they will be destroyed. Brother. Alice's voice sounded in her mind again. After the fairy tale town was promoted to a subspace, her strength as a dream witch has made a qualitative leap. Alice, how are you? Does a change in fairy tale town affect you? Fairy tale town itself is a beautiful dream, and Alice is the dreamer. In an emergency, Wright directly used fairy tale town to fill the hole, and completed the upgrade. Although the result was good, it also made Alice bear a great risk. Brother, I'm fine. And my strength has been greatly improved. Not only you, the power of almost all witches will be greatly improved. I'm asking you, as a dream master, are you injured? Alice quickly replied, no, brother, don't worry, I'm fine. And I think there is still a connection between me and this new fairy tale town. Really? That's great. Wright was very happy. If Alice's identity as a dream master can be inherited, she will become the first elemental master of the fairy tale elemental subspace. This is a position similar to the world's main god, and the authority is even greater. Brother. Sister Emily is in a dangerous situation. Should I support her? I can strengthen her witch power through the new fairy tale town. Don't do that. Wright quickly stopped Alice. Your sister Emily is in a delicate balance now. Any single energy change may cause the multiple energies in her body to be unbalanced, and then dangerous. By the way, Alice, can you talk to other people through the dream gap? No. If it's not the scarecrow left by my brother, I can't talk to my brother. Oh. If it's a witch, it should be possible. Wright was overjoyed when he heard it. Now the childhood subspace has just been generated, and is still in an unstable state. Although he has retrieved the sunlight, he still has to stay here to prevent accidents or some villains from taking advantage of the fire. Now, I just hope Emily and Pinocchio can hold on for a while longer. Since the witch can hear, Alice, you communicate with Unica and tell her that the equipment she designed for Emily has been approved for production. Alice didn't know what this meant, but she contacted Unica as quickly as possible and repeated Wright's words to her. After hearing Alice's message, Unica's eyes widened. Hey. At this time. It just happened to be at this time. She was excited and annoyed at the same time. But I don't have the right materials at hand. If only I could go back to the alchemy workshop in Harbor City. All the equipment is ready. On Dragon Island. In this circle. What should I do? Okay. The mermaid princess Gladys suddenly grabbed Unica's hand. If I go with you, it's okay. Don't forget, all the materials for the alchemy of the sea people can be taken from the sea. You just need to tell me the alchemy parts you need, and then we two will work together to make it, and there is hope that it can be completed. Alice's voice also rang in their ears. I will provide you with a lot of fairy tale element, and you don't have to worry about the consumption of witch power. Unica looked at the increasingly fierce battle in the sky, gritted her teeth, and stomped her feet, turned around and picked up Gladys, jumped out of the holy light circle, ran to steps and suddenly jumped down from the edge of Dragon Island. The two girls, human and mermaid, fell from a high altitude, and below was the blue and deep sea. The wind was howling around them, and Unica couldn't help but scream. Gladys hugged her tightly, and asked in confusion, why did you jump down? Didn't you say that seawater is needed for refining? How can we get water without going to the sea? Gladys didn't know whether to laugh or cry. I'm the royal family of the sea. I just need to summon the waves. That, why didn't you say so earlier? Forget it. We are a burden on the island, but back to the sea. We are the strongest help. Gladys reached out and hugged Unica. Hold me tight. Now, let's refine together. See. Please respond to my call. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 237 Malicious Punishment, asking for monthly ticket. The battle situation on Dragon Island is not optimistic. Although Emily has the ability to cause trouble to the opponent after being blessed with combat power, but it is obvious that it is limited to causing trouble. As the wise man of the Tower of Truth, Mel has absolute intelligence and the agile and powerful body of the Dragon Clan. With such a perfect form, even with only the most basic physical fighting, Emily can be suppressed to death. At this moment, Emily can only rely on the powerful Holy Light self-healing ability to resist the opponent's leisurely attack. As long as the treatment is fast enough, then it is rounded to no injury. The means that make Emily's attack effective have also been seen through by the wise sage. Soul, I'm not wrong. The half-dragon girl directly grabbed Emily's crowbar and let her arm explode with blood mist. Your attribute attack cannot break through the elemental immunity of the dragon race. Your physical attack is not strong enough to hurt the dragon race. As for the lore, rules, and concept power, it is impossible to succeed when I have the power of annihilation to protect my body. So, there is only one reason why you can hurt me now. That is, you are directly attacking my soul. By acting on the soul and then feeding back to the body, it is indeed a very genius means of attack. Let me guess, this should be from the hand of the devil who holds the malice. Ha. It seems that she has made great progress in digesting the power of blasphemy. Emily shuddered after hearing this, and her eyes became more vigilant. Unexpectedly, the opponent figured out her routine after just a few hits. As the wise sage said, the reason why her attack could hurt the opponent was indeed not the power of concept, nor the attribute or physics. It was a kind of willpower generated by her own overwhelming resentment under the effect of Lilith's ability. The dragon girl has the power of annihilation to protect her body, and the malicious concept power can't really cause any harm to her. But the product of malice is not included in the concept. Emily's brain circuit is simple, and she can't quite understand this principle. But she thinks it is similar to what Wright often says, you will pay for what you have done sooner or later, and every cause has its effect, and I'm your attribution. In short, it is a causal injury. The wise sage is the main creator of the witch's tragedy, so many people have suffered and died miserably because of her actions over the years. Such viciousness can never be let go. At the same time, rewarding good and punishing evil is the essence of the law. Under the fusion of the two forces, Emily's attack can be attached, and a special attack that only works against the wise sage's malicious punishment. Punishment is the barrel, and malice is the shell. Every attack of Emily is a close-range execution. If the wise sage is just an ordinary human, she must not be so calm now. At least, Emily will force one or two trump cards to protect herself. But the pity is that the wise sage is already a powerful dragon body. Although Emily can hurt the opponent with malicious punishment, she cannot cause fatal injuries. This level of damage, under the powerful self-repair ability of the dragon race, cannot even leave permanent trauma. Not to mention, the wise sage has too many tricks that have not been used yet. Bang! After being hit by Emily's stick, Longji's back was torn. But she injured the damage and grabbed Emily's neck with her backhand. Such a close distance, such a fast force, such a tricky angle. Emily had no way to avoid it. She had not yet ascended to the gods. Even with the gift of the holy goddess of light, the strength of her body was only that of an ordinary person. She could not become a god body, let alone compete with the dragons. Under this blow, she was very likely to die directly. At the critical moment, the devil of lies once again blocked Emily's body. With a puff, everything exploded like a dream bubble. Pinocchio's figure disappeared with Emily, and the two of them landed on a high peak. Thank you. No need. The lie demon clenched his fists. He felt a powerful fairy tale element rushing into his body, and transformed into the power of lies. In this way, the upgrade of the fairy tale town should have been completed. Light has not appeared yet. It seems that the boss stayed to prevent the change. But the good thing is that it won't take too long. As long as the fairy tale element subspace has passed the surge period and completely cooled down and solidified, he can return to the battlefield. Before that, we must hold on. Sync in the virtual and real. The lie demon encouraged his ability and directly set up a large formation of virtual and real changes, wrapping her up at the bottom. Although the fairy tale subspace also provided him with a lot of assistance, what he really relied on to fight was light's emergence power. Only the emergence power can forcibly upgrade the incomplete real lore of the flesh and blood evil god to the conceptual level. Although it is only temporary, it can make it perfectly integrated with Pinocchio. This ability of illusion and illusion is much more useful than lies. The demon of lies was even a little nervous. Should he choose this promotion route? Just when he was in a trance, the Sage of Wisdom actually came out of his barrier and blew out the dragon breath of annihilation towards the mountain. Impossible. How did you come out so quickly? The demon of lies was very confident in the trap he had just set. He had been weaving this illusion since the beginning of the battle, and he put all his efforts into it. Although it was the first time he used the ability of illusion and illusion, he got the hang of it quickly because of his experience with the concept of lies. As a result, he had been weaving for so long, but the other party cracked it in less than a minute. What kind of demon is he? A clown. Emily was quick-witted and grabbed Pinot before flapping her wings to escape. As soon as they left, the dragon breath of annihilation melted a mountain from top to bottom. It was as if a stream of hot water was poured on the small snow pile, and the snow melted in the blink of an eye. Impossible. How is this possible? The lying demon couldn't understand. Even if the opponent had the power of annihilation to protect his body, the illusion he had woven had no offensiveness at all, so it shouldn't be able to trigger the protection. Haha, your little trick of testing human nature and torturing people's hearts is really clever. The wise sage Mel chased the two people frantically, with a playful look on his face. It's a pity that my humanity was buried with my heart on the day it was buried, Mel said, raised his hand directly, and began to chant the ancient dragon language magic. Boom 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 boom. In an instant, several powerful magic halos bloomed over the entire dragon island. Thunder, fire, ice, hurricanes, meteorites. Several powerful natural disasters mixed together, making Dragon Island seem like the end of the world. Emily was unfortunately affected by two of the attacks, and fell heavily to the ground. Just as several destructive dragon language magics were about to fall, a familiar voice came from behind her. Emily, don't panic. Hurry up and get your new equipment. Chapter 238, The Tricks of the Wise. In the sea, several alchemical parts shot up into the sky and rushed towards Emily. This was a joint product of the Mermaid Princess and the Harbor City Detective, and it was a powerful auxiliary equipment tailored specifically for Emily. The wise sage saw the extraordinariness of these equipment at a glance, and a dragon breath gushed out towards these equipment. The energy with the attribute of annihilation was easily destroyed halfway through the process. Just when the wise sage felt a little relieved, several high-energy elemental rays burst out from the sky and hit her back accurately. The wise sage looked back and found that Emily had gone around behind her without knowing when. Moreover, the equipment that had been destroyed was now suspended beside Emily, shining with light of different elemental attributes. Demon of Lies. The wise sage immediately realized that what he had just destroyed was a virtual illusion that was manipulated by the demon of lies. If it was just a lie, the wise sage was confident that he could tell it apart instantly. But this illusion, which was both real and unreal, was so real that even she couldn't tell it apart immediately. Although it wasn't very aggressive, to be honest, this ability was still very troublesome. Black and white were in perfect sync, and high energy element of various colors were surrounding them. At this moment, Emily had almost reached her most powerful state. No. One more thing. Emily suddenly cried out tenderly and reached out to turn the switch on her belt. There was a sound of a click, and the elemental weapons on her body actually cracked. All released. Emily suddenly turned the switch back, and the belt made a loud noise. At the same time, the elemental weapons on her body, which had already cracked, exploded instantly. Countless fragments flew out like bullets, and Emily's original clothes also exploded in a large area. Once again, Emily returned to the absolutely cool form of hot pants and belly-bearing clothes. This was the bottom line allowed by Wright, and she could release it. What followed was the rampage of magic. Give me your life. Emily had almost surpassed the strength of a demigod at this moment. Like a sword shot from a bow, she rushed to the front of the Sage of Wisdom with the flash of element, waving the crowbar in her hand frantically. Every time she attacked, the crowbar was wrapped with high energy element of different attributes. The unpredictable attack method gave the Sage of Wisdom a headache. Obviously, the dragon race's resistance to magic power is almost 100%. But now, she can't remember the first time she was injured by the opponent's elemental bombardment. How could this happen? The Sage of Wisdom is worthy of being the top boss of the Tower of Truth. She quickly came to a conclusion. The elemental magic power driven by Emily at this moment is in an extremely high energy state. Because the activity is too high, the magic immunity ability of the dragon race has no effect. If the magic immunity of the dragon race is due to the high magic defense, then Emily's magic penetration has long exceeded the magic defense of the dragon race. If he continues to play like this, he will definitely be killed by this little girl. I didn't expect that the witch could grow to this point and threaten me. Ha 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 ha. This world is really amazing. Calculating the time, the hole in the world should have been completely repaired, right? Then I don't need to hide anymore. Bang. With a roar, the wise sage Mel actually blocked Emily's attack with his bare hands. What? Emily was very surprised. In the previous move, she turned the high energy wind element into an extremely sharp dimensional wind blade and wrapped it around the crowbar. With the spiral rolling of the wind blade, it was like a super killing move with a chainsaw and a meat grinder at the same time. The magic immunity of the dragon clan should not be able to stop her. If Mel took it with his bare hands, at best, his skin would be torn apart, and at worst, he would lose his entire arm. But the other party took it lightly. Emily was shocked and tried her best to calm herself down. She found that the palm of the wise sage was actually wrapped in a thin layer of wind element. He actually used an element of the same attribute to offset her attack. Emily was shocked by the opponent's magic manipulation ability, but the next moment she replaced the wind element with fire and thunder, two more lethal element. However, as Emily pressed down with the stick, she found that the dragon princess had also changed the attributes on her palm to fire and thunder. The attack was still easily resisted. Are you also a full system magician? Hahaha, guess what? The wise sage suddenly threw the crowbar away and kicked sideways, kicking Emily out. Emily, you have tried very hard, so don't be sad. After all, you are a witch after all, and you are an incomplete existence from the beginning of your design. The meaning of your existence is to deal with those tribes that are targeted by your abilities. If it is not a specific enemy, your combat effectiveness will be greatly reduced. Not to mention, you haven't even completed the feast, you are completely a half-baked one. Emily got up from the ground and glared at the enemy with gritted teeth. It doesn't matter if you're half-baked or something, but I must kill you. The Sage of Wisdom snorted coldly, then let me show you the real strength and the real gap. No, stop her. The Devil of Lies saw the other party's intention and shouted loudly. But at this moment, he had no means of attack, and Emily hadn't recovered yet. The opening of the world hole, as the main god, the twin goddesses of holy light must have no time to take care of this side. The next moment, a series of dragon magic rings slowly opened, covering the body of the Sage of Wisdom. Then, her body began to grow wildly. In the blink of an eye, a huge high-level dragon appeared in the sky. That terrible and huge dragon is the lingering nightmare of many people. Emily looked at the dragon, that looked like a annihilation beast floating in the sky, and suddenly a deep sense of powerlessness surged in her heart. Looking at the Sage of Wisdom who had successfully transformed, the Devil of Lies muttered to himself. I couldn't beat it in the first place, and now it's even stronger. What should I do? Whoosh. Just as the huge dragon beast roared to the sky, a huge solid ice in the shape of a date pit suddenly rushed out of the deep blue sea, and knocked the dragon down directly. The wise sage had just recovered his true form for less than 3 minutes, when he was severely punished. The sea began to shake, and an iceberg rushed out from the bottom of the sea, growing rapidly and heading towards Dragon Island. Wright stood on the top of the mountain, with his hands behind his back, his eyes becoming more and more sharp. The dragon slayer will eventually become a dragon. Wise Sage Mel, your tricks have been seen through by me. Chapter 239 The Legend of the Dragon Slayer. Although Wright had been testing the stability of the fairy tale elemental subspace in the hollow of the underwater world, he was also listening to Alice broadcasting the battle situation on Dragon Island for him. As the temporary elemental master of the fairy tale elemental subspace, Alice could get the first-hand information she wanted from Emily, and then pass it on to Wright for analysis. As the saying goes, knowing yourself and knowing the enemy will ensure victory in 100 battles. Wright is very concerned about the situation of the wise sage. Only by solving many puzzles on her and unraveling layer after layer of veils can we see the true face of the other party. Only by finding the other party's true identity and knowing the other party's true intentions can it be regarded as a positive game. Otherwise, it is just a one-sided trick. At first, Wright had not been able to find clues to solve the mystery from the other party until Emily's fully liberated form just now forced the other party to reveal a flaw. It was this flaw that made Wright suddenly enlightened. On the towering iceberg, Wright stretched out his hand, and the deep blue sunlight appeared in his hand. Sage of Wisdom, you are a witch, but not a witch. To be precise, you are a similar being to a witch. Or, witches are similar to you. You said at first that you were the creator of witches, and all witches were modeled after you, the Witch of Zero. I thought you were just being mysterious. Now it seems that you are not lying. Looking at the giant dragon nailed to the mountain by huge icicles, Wright sneered. I asked Alice to check the energy in and out of the entire fairy tale elemental subspace and found no trace of you. If it was just a beautiful dream in the cracks of dreams, with your ability as a wise sage, you could indeed hide it from the world. But Fairy Tale Town has become a subspace, and even you can't play tricks in front of the Lord of Element. So, you are indeed different from Emily and Alice. You are a witch, but you are not a fairy tale witch. You are the only legendary witch. The legend that your ability is based on, if I'm not mistaken. Wright pointed at the other party and showed a confident smile. It should be the folk legend of the Dragon's Lair. As soon as these words came out, both the Devil of Lies and Emily at the scene, and Alice, who had been observing the battle in Fairy Tale Town, were shocked. Since fairy tales can be used as a carrier to collect people's wishes, then legends, odes, and epics can also be used. The difference is that fairy tales are more condensed, the text is more detailed, the content is highly unified, and the version differences are small. Moreover, fairy tales are mostly stories that punish evil and promote good, promote truth, goodness, and beauty, and educate children. It is easier to control, and more extensible and operational. The witch's plan is indeed a genius plan. But legends are different. Because there are too many versions of legends. The story is hazy and vague. There are too many parts that cannot be justified, and the content is full of loopholes. Compared with fairy tales, legends are really not a good carrier for the witch plan. But you, the Witch of Zero, the creator of the witch plan, the wise sage, actually chose the legend of the Dragon's Lair. Don't tell me that you are saving better fairy tales for the witch plan. There are too many fairy tales. Let alone 7 witches, 17 are more than enough. I don't care about consuming one more familiar fairy tale. Then, there is only one truth. That is you, who has taken a fancy to the special ability brought by the legend of the Dragon's Lair warrior. The Dragon Slayer eventually becomes a dragon. This is your real purpose. With this special effect, you will have its power when you kill a dragon. Just like the royal family of the Sea Clan fought to the death and took the blood of the other party's sea god. You use the same technique, combined with the will of the Dragon's Lair witch, and finally achieved the effect you wanted. From the fact that you just use the dragon language magic of various attributes and could transform into a dragon form, it can be regarded as confirming my guess. And these are just the prelude to your madness. The wise sage, the Dragon's Lair witch Mel. Your real purpose is a end dragon in this dragon's nest. Right. The dragon on the mountain wall suddenly exhaled and melted the ice. Then a series of dragon language magics lit up, and her injured position was quickly healed. Wright frowned, and he even found the ability of the Holy Dragon of Light in it. It seems that the First Empire discovered the wreckage of the Holy Dragon of Light, and it is also very likely that this woman guided it. As for why she knew that there was the body of the Holy Dragon of Light in that place, it was probably because she killed it. Dragons have rarely appeared on the mainland in recent years, and it seems that this woman has contributed a lot. Now, she has even slaughtered all the dragons on the entire Dragon Island. I think she is now an encyclopedia of all kinds of dragons. Coupled with her unfathomable magical attainments, it is simply not a problem. Looking at the Sage of Wisdom slowly rising into the air, Wright clenched the sunlight in his hand. Forbidden Hand Absolute Zero. Standing on the iceberg, Wright took the lead and urged the power of the deep blue sunlight, rushing towards the giant dragon in the sky with endless frost. Mel's eyes flashed with a trace of mockery, and the ancient dragon language magic circle appeared on the dragon's wings, and Wright's killing move was defeated with a roar. When the snow was flying all over the sky, Wright rushed into the sky, and the deep blue sunlight in the form of a spear in his hand suddenly smashed towards the dragon's head. Unexpectedly, the giant dragon suddenly changed into the form of a frost dragon, and crashed into it, with a clang. Although Wright could also cause damage under the same attribute, his damage was greatly reduced. In response, he fired a powerful thunder dragon breath and several forbidden dragon language magic. Amid the roar, Wright finally escaped from the opponent's saturation attack. The dragon had already flown there, and its body shape changed into an indestructible dense stone dragon, and it crashed heavily into Wright. In the first encounter, Wright actually suffered a little loss. Looking at the constantly changing body shape of the Sage of Wisdom, who almost never stopped, Wright was ready. Perhaps because she was afraid that her breath would be detected by the Eternal Dragon Clan and the Dragon of Destruction. The Sage of Wisdom did not release her full strength at first. Now that the hole in the world has been repaired, her fear gradually dissipated, and she began to show her true strength. We can't wait any longer. The Devil of Lies suddenly appeared behind Wright. Boss, she must have killed the Annihilation Beast before. According to your inference, the Dragon Slayer will eventually become an evil dragon. But the beast is not a pure dragon, but a follower of the dragon. So, she must have made a mistake when absorbing it. But if the time is delayed too long, allowing her to completely absorb the fragments of the concept of annihilation, then it will be too late for her. Boom. A dragon breath full of annihilation properties spewed down, and Wright escaped successfully with the help of Pinocchio. But Pinocchio's face became even uglier. Boss, I seem to be late. The other party seems to have almost taken control. We are delaying time, and she is also delaying. Wright turned the spear in his hand and smiled contemptuously. It doesn't matter, just kill it. Chapter 240. Isn't it good to be alive? The light demon suddenly felt that things were stable, because he had seen this smile of light. The last time he saw him smile so confidently was the last time, when he beat him up in the small fishing village. But no matter how hard he racked his brains, the light demon could not think of any way Light could deal with this dragon princess. As the power of the Annihilation Beast was completely absorbed, the wise sage would be able to freely use the corresponding concept power. Even if it was not as domineering as the power of destruction, even if it was not a complete annihilation concept, her difficulty was enough to make people despair. Light was very powerful, and the concept of emergence was extremely versatile. However, facing such an extreme means of destruction, it might not work. However, now Light obviously did not intend to explain to him. He lightly raised the deep blue sunlight in his hand, and several huge ice spikes soared into the sky, shooting at the giant dragon manifested by the wise sage like a cannonball. Facing Light's attack, the dragon princess raised her head and exhaled a breath of annihilation dragon, easily destroying all the ice spikes. It was not the melting of frost caused by high temperature. The ice made by the deep blue sunlight could not be melted in a short time, unless it was a powerful divine fire. But it was the power of annihilation. It could be completely destroyed from the physical level, as long as it was touched. However, Wright didn't care. He kept waving his spear and mobilizing the entire seawater to fight against it. Under the crazy bombardment of one man and one dragon, Dragon Island seemed to have entered eternal freezing, and the sea below also formed a huge glacier. Taking advantage of this opportunity, the light demon took Emily, who was already exhausted, to a safe place. At this moment, she was unable to move, because of overuse of power and too much overload consumption. She was still alive, only because the two twin gods Jonah and Aphra cast a divine spell on her. At least in the short term, she had to stay in bed and rest. Looking at the fierce battle in the sky, the light demon suddenly found that the annihilation dragon breath of the wise sage had a tendency to weaken. Yes. Oh, I'm such a blockhead. The light demon slapped his forehead and realized the key to the problem. The annihilation power in the body of the wise sage is limited, or in other words, the annihilation power in the body of the annihilation beast is limited. They are the followers of the Dragon of the End, and the meaning of their existence is to do the preliminary work before the Dragon of the End destroys the world. When the world is destroyed, they will also perish with it. They are very strong, but to put it bluntly, they are 4 disposable items. Since they are disposable, there will be some differences in design and manufacturing. At least one thing is that the conceptual power they possess is limited, and it will be gone after use, and there is no place or source, let alone an entrance to replenish it. Consume. That's right. You are worthy of being the boss. You can see the opponent's life gate at a glance. The lie demon couldn't help but applaud, as if he had won. Indeed, Wright thought so. In his eyes, this so-called wise sage just picked up a disposable lighter. Don't look at the joy of lighting now. When the lighter is out of gas, it will be quiet. Of course, this is also a conclusion drawn through observation. When Wright was at the bottom of the sea, he had been listening to Alice's real-time voice broadcast. Emily had already pushed the opponent to that point, but she was still so economical in using the power of annihilation. It looked like a cat playing with a mouse, but in fact, she almost capsized several times. A master might almost capsize once because of arrogance and teasing. But it is impossible that after almost capsizing 2 or 3 times, he would still stubbornly retain his strength and be unwilling to use his full strength. So Wright judged at that time that the power of annihilation on hand must not be enough for this woman, otherwise she would not use it so economically. Moreover, with an ordinary mortal body, she might not be able to forcibly control this extremely domineering power. The jet nozzle made of paper cannot be used as a welding torch. No matter from which angle, as long as she delays, she will definitely run out of energy. There is no need to use any conceptual power at all. He only needs to force the opponent to constantly use conceptual power to win steadily. As for her absorption of countless dragon abilities, what's the use? Killing all the dragons on Dragon Island is nothing to brag about. After all, even if all the dragons on Dragon Island come alive and attack together, Wright is confident that he can resolve the battle within a minute. Moreover, there is more than one way. At their level of battle, these dragons are at most energy storage tanks. That little bit of attack power can be completely ignored. As expected, under Wright's continuous harassment and attack, the Sage of Wisdom became obviously impatient. She did not expect that Wright's deep blue sunlight would be so difficult to deal with. This kind of coldness mixed with emotions and will cannot be broken by ordinary magic and means. How is it? Is it very troubled? Wright slashed the dragon wing of the Sage of Wisdom with a shot. When Longji felt the pain, she raised her head and fired a full dragon breath of annihilation. Unfortunately, countless huge glaciers rushed out from the seabed and blocked the dragon breath. When these glaciers were completely destroyed, Wright had already taken advantage of this gap to dodge the attack. You know, deep blue, I realized it on the top of the barbarian's ancestral mountain. There are the 3 supreme mysteries of the berserkers. Fire berserker, frost berserker, and thunder berserker. Although they are all berserkers, the 3 barbarian ancestors have completely different styles. The difference lies in emotions and will. It was on that ancestral mountain that I gradually perfected my sinful brilliance. So here comes the question. Why did I go to the barbarian tribe, and why did I climb the ancestral peak? Haha, that's precisely because the actions of your Tower of Truth disgusted me. In order to deal with your organization, which is almost entirely composed of mages, I traveled a long distance and went through hardships to go to the barbarian tribe, known as the Mage Killer, to exchange experiences. Today, I can use what I have learned to deal with you, the source of all evil in the Tower of Truth. Deep blue. It's freezing cold. As Wright's spear turned, the temperature around dropped sharply. The Lie Demon felt the threat and quickly used his ability to take Emily away from Dragon Island. Longji also felt that the dragon blood in her body was about to freeze. She quickly used the power of annihilation to destroy the coldness and protect her body. However, what she didn't know was that this was just a prelude to Wright's ultimate move. Deep blue. Freeze the 4 pillars. Wright suddenly stuck the spear in his hand into the ground, and then 4 huge frost storm water tornadoes suddenly appeared in the 4 directions of southeast, northwest, and northeast, penetrating the sky and the earth. A large amount of seawater was sucked up to the sky, like the 4 feet of a giant turtle, and like white jade pillars supporting the sky and purple gold beams across the sea. Longji realized that something was wrong and wanted to flap her wings to escape, but was forced back by the violent ice and snowstorm. The 4 ice tornadoes seemed to have some kind of suction, forcing her to be unable to leave. Freeze. With Wright's roar, the space between the 4 pillars was instantly frozen, and Longji was sealed in the middle, like a mosquito in amber. Seeing this, Wright quietly breathed a sigh of relief. He pulled out his spear, and the sunlight also changed back to the original great sword. However, the originally extremely hard and eternally pure huge ice block suddenly made a crackling sound inside. Wright frowned. TSK. Isn't it good to be alive? Chapter 241 Mo Ran draws a stroke. Wright originally wanted to spare her life temporarily. After all, the witch's affairs require the information in her mind to answer. If accurate information can be obtained from the founder of the witch plan, then all witch curses can be lifted, and there is no need to worry about any hidden dangers. Moreover, with the generation of the fairy tale elements of space, the construction and development of the fairy tale promotion channel will also require this part of knowledge. Even if it is completely unrelated to the witch plan, the information in her mind is precious enough just for her identity as the Sage of Wisdom of the Tower of Truth. After all, Wright hopes to completely eradicate the cancer of the Tower of Truth. These guys are the rats and insects in his back garden, which is very annoying. If you want to have a good time here, you must completely eliminate them. Of course, the huge hornet's nest hanging under the eaves like Dragon Island must also be eliminated. Although this shabby courtyard still needs to be repaired, it is urgent to completely clean up these pests. However, the Sage of Wisdom obviously did not understand Wright's good intentions. He just wanted to turn her into the second intelligent AI prototype of the Light Principle Ring. What was wrong with him? Exclamation mark. Since you don't want to drink my toast, then I can only ask you to drink the penalty wine. Wright erected the sunlight in front of him, but dispersed his own holy domain, and cancelled the resonance of his soul. His realm fell all the way back to the incomplete holy level from the sky level strongman. However, the energy fluctuations of the sunlight were constantly surging. I haven't used this trick for a long time. I was originally a kind-hearted person. Why do you force me to reveal my true nature? The final brilliance, ink-stained. As Wright whispered softly, the sunlight lost all its light, and the color was infinitely close to Wright's hair color and eye color. Pitch black lightless light, ink-stained. The sunlight greatsword itself was twisted and turned into a weapon that didn't look like a weapon. The judge's pen. The tip of the pen was filled with some unknown black liquid. Although it was not sure what it was definitely not ink. At this moment, Wright held the judge's pen in one hand, quietly looking at the amber-like ice. I don't know if he couldn't feel the terrifying breath, or was frozen solely by the deep blue ice. The wise sage resolutely used the power of annihilation and successfully destroyed the sealed ice. She flapped her wings in the air, then opened her mouth and suddenly sprayed a strong breath of annihilation towards Wright. However, this time, Wright did not dodge, but just held the judge's pen and drew a stroke towards the incoming dragon breath. A trace of ink appeared in the air, lightly erasing the annihilation dragon breath. Seeing this extremely strange scene, the wise sage was so shocked that she forgot to flap her wings. Impossible. How is this possible? She couldn't believe what had just happened. Her breath containing the power of annihilation was actually annihilated. No, not annihilation, but covered or erased. It was as if she had written a line of spells on paper, which was supposed to work. But someone used some unknown paint to paint the spell black. The original spell turned into a black stripe, losing all its characteristics and meaning. This is terrible. Because this attack is not only aimed at the spell just now, but all spells cannot resist this kind of cheating behavior. At this moment, the wise sage realized the biggest loophole in his careful and perfect plan. He misjudged the true strength of the holy Wright. Although there is no evidence, the wise sage feels that this is not even Wright's final resort. It is just one of his many trump cards that is more impressive. However, when Mel realized this, he did not have the slightest fear, but a kind of crazy joy was mixed between his eyebrows. Her figure continued to rise, and then she let out a series of low roars. As her body twisted, another head actually emerged from the neck of the dragon she transformed into. Looking at the bloody new head, Wright felt disgusted. At the same time, he was also a little surprised. Are you willing to do this? Wright asked because he felt that the head did not belong to the body of the Sage of Wisdom. In order to obtain more annihilation power, the dragon princess actually sewed the annihilation beast into her body. In this way, she also became a chimera. Just like the so-called holy dragon of light in the holy city. It seems that the chimera was just a test subject of the Sage of Wisdom, so that he could use himself to piece together the annihilation beast today. After becoming a part of the chimera, the dilemma of the annihilation beast as a disposable lighter was twisted and solved. Similarly, when the Sage of Wisdom killed the other 3 beasts, he would also gain their power. If she could kill the dragon of the end, a super large disposable lighter, then she could even obtain an endless supply of destructive power. Wright looked at the 2-headed monster dragon in the sky and even gave a thumbs up. You have ideas, the ability to act, and the ruthlessness to not even spare yourself. How great it would be if you could take the right path. Ha 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 ha. What do you know about me? The wise sage was unmoved. She flapped her wings and continued to accumulate the power of annihilation. I never think I'm doing anything good, but everything I do is from my heart and loyal to my original intention. For this, it doesn't matter if it's a heinous crime or a blood debt. To achieve the goal, nothing is impossible. I don't need your regret, let alone your pity. Wright nodded slightly. So, I can never leave you in the world. You just take your original intention and die. The judge's pen waved, and a big word of annihilation took shape in an instant, smashing towards the 2-headed monster dragon in the sky. At this moment, the wise sage also gathered a huge annihilation energy ball and smashed it directly below. Boom. The sphere collided with the word annihilation. The huge explosion set off a raging sea. The entire Dragon Island was shaking like crazy, as if it was about to fall from the sky. After all, it was a conceptual power. The explosion of the power of annihilation shattered the word annihilation. But countless ink dots still bombarded the 2-headed monster dragon like arrows of rainstorm pear blossoms, almost turning it into a sieve. The wise sage wailed and fell from the sky, hitting the Dragon Island heavily. It was because she was a giant dragon with a strong vitality and swallowed so many giant dragons' power. Otherwise, she would have completely fallen in just one blow. Wright flashed in front of her, and the Synlight greatsword also returned to its original state and pressed against her reverse scale. Under the scales was her heart. Whatever your plan is, it ends here. Wait. The wise sage suddenly shouted and controlled a fist-sized crystal with his mind to fly in front of Wright. When Wright saw what was in the crystal, his face became extremely ugly. There was actually a button inside the crystal. Chapter 242 I Want It All. Without saying a word, Wright thrust his sword into the dragon's reverse scales and stabbed into her heart. The wise sage gushed blood, her eyes full of disbelief. What are you looking at? I know this is my button, and I still remember the agreement I made with the god of death. But you think too much. With all the crimes you have committed, 100 buttons can't save your life. If you violate the contract, the worst that can happen is that you will bear the curse of the underworld and face the pursuit of the god of death. Even so, you have to die. For the first time, panic appeared in the eyes of the wise sage. She gushed blood. Wait a minute. Listen to me. For the sake of the button, at least let me finish. TSK. Light looked at her impatiently. I spared your life just now, but you insisted on making trouble. Now I want to send you to death, and you are reluctant. For the sake of the button, say what you want to say. Fart quickly. 10 days. The wise sage collapsed to the ground. I know this button can't bring my life back, but I only need 10 days. After 10 days, you can kill me, or chop me up as you please. Light narrowed his eyes. At this time, you are still thinking about the dragon of the end? I might as well tell you that, even if you get the power of the dragon of the end, you are not my opponent. Your request is meaningless. What's more, your bargaining chips are not enough. I'm willing to offer all my knowledge. All the information I know. Lita turned the hilt of the Synlight sword with disdain. Kill you, and all of these will be mine. Are you sure of this? The wise sage endured the severe pain, still with no intention of giving in. Mr. Wright, you are indeed very powerful, but as the sage of wisdom of the Tower of Truth, I'm not a pushover. I know that you have masters of playing with souls such as the Demon of Lies and the Demon of Greed around you, and even the Witch of Dreams has joined your ranks. but I can tell you confidently that, as long as I want, I can destroy my memory at the moment of death. Even if it cannot be completely destroyed, there will definitely be some loss. Mr. Wright, if the loss involves the curse of the witch, it will not be worth the loss for you, right? Wright tapped his fingers lightly on the hilt of the sword. He did not want to let the Sage of Wisdom go. Whether from a moral and axiom perspective, or from personal emotions, he did not want to. But what the other party said was indeed true. Although he now has a means to restrain the influence of the witch, he has only used it once, and it is not completely successful. Although the power of the witch left Jonah's body, it did not dissipate, but found another new host. And as more and more witches gathered around him, Wright became more and more concerned. If we can get first-hand information and completely solve the witch's curse, it will definitely be a great thing. Wright narrowed his eyes and looked at the Sage of Wisdom, who fell to the ground and was dying. Why? Tell me the reason why you did all this, and I might consider it. At the same time, a pure holy light flowed into Mel's body along the sword of the Synlight Greatsword, temporarily stabilizing her heart. Seeing this, Mel couldn't help but sigh. It doesn't matter to tell you. Actually, I'm not from this world. What? Wright's hand holding the Synlight Greatsword shook suddenly, and he almost sent the Sage of Wisdom away on the spot. He quickly increased the injection of holy light, which stabilized the other party's life. Sorry, please continue. The wise sage endured the severe pain and said tremblingly, I know, this is hard to understand. But I did escape here from another world. Our original world was destroyed by the Dragon of the End. No, it was destroyed by the Dragon Clan. Completely destroyed. My hometown, my relatives and friends, my world, turned to ashes. This group of damned termites, disgusting parasites. They have been sucking the nutrients of this world since they were born, constantly bringing tragedy and lamentations to this world. Their existence is a sin. Their survival is a threat to this world. My parents were originally great wizards in that world. They participated in the battle against the Dragon Clan. We were about to win, but the Dragon Island in our world took advantage of the opening of the world hole to ask for help from the Dragon Realm. A large number of Eternal Dragon reinforcement turned the tide of the battle in an instant. My parents sent me to this world at the cost of their lives and gave me all their lifelong knowledge in magic. Originally, I planned to live a good life in this world, but I found traces of dragons again in this world. The same viciousness, the same arrogance. The same Dragon Island, the same conspiracy. This reminds me of my innocent hometown. They did nothing wrong. Why? The wise man had a hideous face, just like a dragon. So, I want revenge. Not only will I wipe out all the dragons in this world, I will also raise my butcher knife to the eternal dragons. But unfortunately, I'm too weak. I'm too weak alone. Wright nodded thoughtfully. So, you created the Tower of Truth? You trained so many lunatics, even exterminated humanity for power, including the later witch plan. Once it succeeds, this world will become your arsenal. Your goal is revenge. Yes, I want revenge. I want to let those damn dragons know. They did this, but it was not without cost. They wantonly trampled on life and destroyed other people's worlds. And I want to make them shattered. Blood flowed like a river, completely exterminated from the entire world. Wright looked at the wise sage, and after a long silence, he slowly spoke. All your knowledge and memories, I want them all. Okay. Wright nodded slightly, and tapped the hilt with one hand. A holy light bloomed at the reverse scale of the dragon. I have set a timed detonation magic circle for your heart. In 10 days, your heart will explode, and you will die. If you try to lift the seal, it will take effect immediately. I advise you that this seal is very sensitive. In order to avoid accidental contact, you'd better not even try. Not only that, I will come to check it out in person, and if necessary, I will personally finish it off. No problem. During this period, you can't leave Dragon Island. Okay. Wright spread his hands. Then give me all the relevant information about the witch first. This is your advance payment. In 10 days, I will come to collect the balance. The wise sage looked at Wright. You aren't afraid that I will attract the army of the eternal dragons? Or devour the Dragon of the End? Wright laughed when he heard this. People who have the ability To overturn the table will not care about having a few more dishes on the table. What's more, you are not even dishes. At most you are just desserts. Chapter 243 The Witch's Choice. When leaving Dragon Island, Wright stretched out his hand to the sky. Then, countless rays of light fell from the sky, forming a huge cage of light, sealing the entire Dragon Island. From a distance, it looked like a birdcage. Wright also arranged several magic arrays for early warning outside the birdcage, and then turned and flew towards the direction of Harbor City. The early part of the deal with the Sage of Wisdom has been completed. He has now obtained all the information about the witch's plan inside the Tower of Truth. The content once again aroused Wright's murderous intention. If he had not made a vow, he might really take action on the spot and crush the other party to ashes. Although the Sage of Wisdom is now able to survive, her end will be in 10 days. Wright is also more worried about the situation of Emily and others at this moment. Going back to rest may be a good choice. In a blink of an eye, Wright has returned to Harbor City. Most of the people here have fled away from the city. After all, Harbor City is the closest city to Dragon Island. The shocking battle just now caused such a big commotion that ordinary people would definitely choose to escape first. Fortunately, there are still a large number of flesh and blood cult believers who stayed behind to maintain the law and order and operation of the Harbor City. Wright did not disturb them, but chose to quietly return to his reliable grocery store. As soon as he entered the backyard, Lilith ran over first and threw herself into his arms. "Are you okay?" "It's okay. It's just Dragon Island. But I heard that there are guys on Dragon Island who can use powerful conceptual power." "Yes, but not very powerful." Wright took Lilith's hand and briefly told her the ins and outs of the matter. After all, Lilith's rank is higher and her vision is broader, so it is easier for Wright to explain. "She's actually from another world. I didn't expect that." "Ahem, it's not that strange. No, the ability to teleport from one world to another is something that some native gods may not have. Not to mention that mortals can master it and transmit it to mortals without loss. I wonder if she has this technology in her mind." Wright thought for a while. It should be. After all, according to her, her parents gave her all their knowledge, which should include this part. Of course, the price of this ability is life. Her parents may have deliberately erased this part to prevent her from abusing it. Lilith hugged Wright's arm. The knowledge in this woman's mind probably contains a lot of taboos. After we get it, we still need to treat it differently. Otherwise, if we are not careful, we will get into big trouble. Don't worry about that. After following Wright for so long, Lilith's thinking mode has gradually become Wright-like. At least, like Wright, she has regarded this world as their backyard, where they live together. Wright doesn't like people messing with his backyard, and Lilith naturally doesn't like it either. "How is Emily?" "Nothing serious, and it's a blessing in disguise. After carrying the power of Jonah and me, her body's toughness and sensitivity to the power of laws have been enhanced. Her future path to promotion will be extremely smooth." Wright clapped his hands. "I understand. The new car is easier to drive after running on the highway. Once you explain, I don't understand anymore." Lilith turned her head to look at the Dragon Island locked tightly in the light prison. From this direction, it looked more like a birdcage. The prelude to the destruction of the world has already sounded. According to what you said, she is preparing to devour all of the 4 world-destroying disaster beasts, and she is even planning to kill the dragon of the end. If she really succeeds, will the seal you set still be effective? Of course, I have calculated this step accurately. What does she want to do? Wright stood in front of the door and let out a long breath. If I'm not mistaken, she wants to lure the eternal dragons to come to this world to explore, and then set this world into a trap to kill. But things did not go as planned, and her conspiracy was exposed and destroyed by us. Now the trap is gone. But there is something more terrifying than the trap. You. Lilith pointed in the direction of Dragon Island. "That stinky woman. Does she want to use you?" "The use is mutual." Wright grinned. "I'm also using her. I need the arrival of the eternal dragons." Lilith did not understand at first, but when she looked at the door, she suddenly understood. "I understand. You are using your usual words, killing a chicken to scare the monkey?" The fairy tale elemental subspace is a new mine that is watched by all gods, and it will definitely attract some guys with bad intentions in the future. If you slaughter the eternal dragons this time, you can shock those gods. No, you are actually killing a monkey to scare the chickens. You want to use the eternal dragons to establish your authority. Smart. Light tapped Lilith's forehead, then pushed the door, and walked into the room. The huge room was full of people. Not only Alice and the Devil of Lies were there, but even Unica and Gladys had rushed back from the sea. Brother, you are finally back. Alice ran up and grabbed Light's hand, tears flashing in her eyes. Brother, please go and check on Sister Emily. She's in a very bad condition. Wright patted her head gently. Don't worry, your sister Emily will be fine. What's more, she will have a qualitative leap. Because her feast can begin. Hearing the word feast, Lilith immediately stepped forward. Really? Of course. Didn't I say that I got all the information about the witch's plan from the Sage of Wisdom? Then, which witch does Emily correspond to? Actually, we guessed right. Emily corresponds to Beauty and the Beast. But we also guessed wrong, because her situation is the opposite of Unica. She is a combination of Beauty and the Beast. Lilith frowned. Although I understood every word, I didn't understand what it meant. What does a combination mean? So she is the Beauty Beast. Emily is an elemental witch, and her existence is to deal with elves. And her true identity is not a full-service magician. She is a full-service druid. Mastering all magic is just a prerequisite for a druid. Hearing this, Lilith suddenly realized. Oh, I see. No wonder her magic teacher never taught her any proper magic. It turns out that he knew from the beginning that Emily was not a magician, but a druid. So he didn't train her as a full-fledged magician. Druids have beast souls in their bodies. No wonder she sometimes shows beast-like intuition. But you said that her feast has begun. What does that mean? Wright took out his button. In fact, the conditions for all witches' feasts are the same. That is, death and rebirth. This is true for Snow White, Alice in Dreamland, the Daughter of the Sea, and Cinderella. Beauty and the Beast is even more so. The Tower of Truth created witches, but as many fairy tales say, witches themselves also have the right to choose. Of course, I'm not worried about Emily. She's a good captain. It's just that now, she needs a little help from the breath of death. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 244. I'm proud of you. Death is the key to the witch's feast. Of course, the so-called death does not refer to a real and complete death, but a state of dying, either mentally or physically. The situation of each witch is different and cannot be generalized. But one thing is certain, that is, Emily has indeed reached an important node now. Witches are special beings. In fact, there have always been two completely different powers in Emily's body. The elves are a very interesting group, and their abilities are closely tied to their gender. Druids are generally only inherited by male elves, while the inheritance of magic is completed by female elves. As a witch who wants to fight against the entire elf race, how could she forget the druid part? For Emily's training, it should be a two-way training of magic power and natural power. The training of either side alone will result in a partiality. Emily's teacher had to give up teaching Emily too much magic knowledge, because he could not provide the inheritance of druids. In order to prevent excessive partiality from leading to the failure of Emily's final feast. In this way, he cannot absorb her witch power. Just because he couldn't do it didn't mean that Wright couldn't do it. Especially, after getting all the witch inheritance from the wise sage. Wright pressed the button that he had traded with the god of death on Emily's forehead, and the strong breath of death immediately spread to her soul. After all, the witch's curse was a blasphemy against death. After discovering that Emily's soul was different, these death forces were as excited as sharks that smelled blood. No. Is it okay? Lilith was a little worried. She is just a human after all. The button you put there was kept by the god of death himself. Don't worry, I know my limits. Wright said as he came to the recliner and fell asleep after sitting down. Alice saw that Wright had fallen asleep at a glance. She wanted to follow him into the dreamland, but was stopped by Lilith and the devil of lies. Pinocchio said with a serious expression, "Don't go." Wright went to Emily's dream. Emily's soul is in a state of rampage now. You will only cause trouble if you go in. Don't worry. Since Wright dares to do this, it means he must be sure. Just leave it to him. In the dream, Wright came to the familiar fiefdom of the Lawrence family. Judging from the buildings in the town and the scene of the Lawrence manor, this place should be like it was more than 10 years ago. What surprised Wright was that he found Emily's spirit body at a glance. In this nightmare, Emily's self-awareness was very stable and clear. When she saw Wright coming, she was even a little angry. "Why can't you trust me once? I just came to see." Wright saw that her condition was so stable, and the last trace of worry disappeared. That's right, Emily was a student taught by him and Lilith, and she also killed back and forth in the nightmare abyss. Now she is like in the game. After leveling up to level 999, all equipment and skills are maximumed out, and she has opened the plugin, and then went to the Demon King's city, to challenge the final big demon. The one who should be trembling with fear is the final boss. This is my first year of learning magic. Emily looked at her home, and could see her childhood self through the window on the second floor. Little Emily was sitting at the desk, copying the abstract of apprentice magic while crying. Her silly and cute look made Wright and Emily laugh. The two stood outside the manor, and looked at the windowsill until the little girl finally finished copying the notes, and handed them to her teacher for inspection. Emily suddenly spoke up at this time. "At that time, I really hated learning magic. At that time, our Lawrence family had fallen, and we lived on this fiefdom. This is not a rich place, and there are still forests inhabited by monsters around. But my father still spent a lot of money to invite a magic tutor for me, hoping that I could become a magician. When I was a child, I didn't understand it. Later, when I grew up, I asked my father why he was so determined to let me learn magic. My father told me that it was my mother's last wish. He said that, when my mother died, she told him that she hoped I could become a powerful magician who could control my own destiny. At that time, my father and I didn't quite understand why my mother, who had nothing to do with magic, would say that. Now think about it, maybe my mother at that time noticed something. But she was an ordinary person, and she didn't have any good solutions, but she didn't want me to repeat the same mistakes. Perhaps in her impression and understanding, magic is magical and omnipotent. Becoming a powerful magician may avoid repeating her fate. Wright slowly raised his hands behind his back and pressed them on Emily's head. "Don't cry. I'm not crying." When did these tears sneak out? Emily wiped her tears, and her movements were exactly the same as the little Emily on the windowsill just now. "When I was a child, I also hated learning magic, because I really didn't have any talent. But my father said that magicians are very powerful. If you become a powerful magician, maybe you can see your mother. So I studied hard. I'm not afraid of hardship or tiredness. But magic knowledge is like this. The more you learn, the deeper you get in touch with, the more you understand that seeing your mother again is simply impossible." On this day that year, I personally punctured the biggest dream for the first time. Emily was already sobbing when she said this, and her tears fell like pearls from a broken string. Wright was thoughtful. No wonder the nightmare in the deepest part of her soul was such a scene. He sighed softly and reached out to rub Emily's head. "Life is helpless, right? Yeah. Then do you still have the courage to continue to face it?" "Of course." Emily wiped her face, and her expression was much more resolute. "I want to fulfill my mother's long cherished wish. I want to become a powerful magician who can control my own destiny. I want to hold the rudder of my life in my own hands. Right, I still want to be the captain." After saying this, Emily's spirit body suddenly burst into a brilliant light. Her will became more determined, and the huge soul energy instantly became active. The accumulation of which is from generation to generation, is like a seed taking root and growing continuously. In the end, a beautiful white rose bloomed. Emily had just been promoted to the holy level some time ago, but now she has completed the transformation again, and advanced to become a legendary strongman. As soon as she was successfully promoted, she saved her nightmare. "Right, can I send it to Fairy Tale Town?" "Of course." You are already a mature witch, and Fairy Tale Town naturally has a place for you. Do whatever you want. In addition, I will give you a gift. Wright stretched out his hand, and a huge ship filled with all kinds of animals was slowly sailing towards her. If you want to be a captain, you must have a ship. Take it, Captain Emily. It's perfect for you. Chapter 245 Love, always with you. Legends are similar to fairy tales, but not as solid as fairy tales. It is difficult to use ethereal legends to achieve the effect of fairy tale witches. As for the wise sage, she is an exception. Under the premise that the Dragon Slayer is so familiar, she still spent an unknown amount of time and energy and slaughtered countless dragons before she could barely complete her feast. The difficulty is so great that it makes people despair. If you want to copy it, it will be time consuming and laborious, and the benefits will be poor. It is said that Mel has a blood feud with the Dragon Clan, otherwise she would not choose such an inefficient and low return method. Isn't it better to just find a fairy tale with a more popular base? After getting all the content of the witch plan, Wright also has a certain understanding of the concrete use of legends. In his opinion, it is indeed unwise to reflect the legend on a specific person. But if, in the dream, it is combined with fantasy creatures, you can maximize its effectiveness while reducing costs. As for the problem that the fantasy creatures in the dream cannot affect the real world, there is no need to worry at all, because the fairy tale element subspace has been born. Fairy tale element are magical element. They are element that can turn the impossible into the possible. You only need to consume a certain amount of fairy tale element to reflect the things in the dream into the real world. Before the appearance of the fairy tale subspace, powerful individuals could also do this. But this involves a problem of energy collapse and energy overflow when the real world interacts with the dream. From the dream to the real world, a large amount of energy needs to be absorbed. And from the real world to the dream, a large amount of energy will overflow. For the same thing, the energy overflowed and absorbed in the process of floating up and sinking between the dream and the real world should be the same. Now with the fairytale subspace as a transit station, the problem has been perfectly and properly solved. Fairytale summoners can use the contract as collateral to summon individuals from the dream to the real world. Anyway, they can send it back after it is used up, and the energy overflowed and absorbed is the same. The summoner only needs to use a part of the fairytale element to pay for the loss during this period in the subspace's commission. Although this is not cheap, it is much cheaper than directly materializing the dream objects. The difference in price is no less than that of renting an hourly room and buying a house. Although the fairytale subspace has just opened, Wright has already done a lot of preparation for it. This is one of the reasons why he wants to give this ship to Emily. You are a witch, and the power of witches is a leapfrog version of the fairytale element. The relationship between the two is probably similar to the power of holy light and the light element. At the same time, you are also one of the leaders of the fairytale subspace, using the subspace to summon fantasy objects in dreams, and there is a discount on top of the discount. Rounding it off, half selling and half giving. So, this ship is very suitable for you. Emily covered her mouth and looked at the huge ship that was like a mountain, her eyes full of disbelief. Hey, is this the legendary Ark? Is it the Ark that saved all species in the Great Flood of God? Yes, the Ark is a legend on the same level as the Dragon Slayer. It is widely praised and has a more solid image than other illusory legends. But it is still not suitable to be in existence like Pinocchio. But it is just right to compliment you. Emily's big eyes were full of confusion. Why do you say that? Druids must be able to hear the voice of nature and use the beast souls in their bodies to echo it, so as to gain powerful strength. The more wild souls in the body, the more abilities a druid has as a theory, and the wider the choices. I don't have time to carefully select the right wild soul for you, so I'll just pack it all up and give it to you. According to the setting of the Ark, all the birds and beasts in the world should be on the ship. Choose what you want to use. Before I'd finished speaking, Emily rushed over and threw herself into his arms. Thank you, Light. I just helped you complete the teaching materials, but you still lack the druid inheritance part. When you have time, go to the Elf Empire and complete this part. At that time, you will have truly completed your feast. But you should get familiar with the new power in these 10 days, at least when the dragon army arrives. You can also experience the feeling of a dragon's lair. Emily was eager to try. I have long disliked those big lizards with wings. Especially that damn wise sage. Light. Then I will go and try my new boat. Go. Remember not to speed. Emily cheered and flew to her own ark. She landed on the deck, slowly examined her ship, and finally walked to the rudder step by step. The moment she reached out to hold the rudder handle, half of her head scarf suddenly floated out of her body. This half scarf grew in the wind and then wrapped around the mast of the ark, becoming the new sail of the ark. Emily's eyes were full of tears when she saw this scene. No matter how far she went, her mother's love would protect her. Mom, please watch. I will definitely grasp my own destiny, drive this ship, and sail to a better tomorrow. I have decided the name of this ship is the Ark of Destiny. Hearing this name, Wright quietly breathed a sigh of relief. Watching Emily driving the ark in the cracks of dreams for a long time, Wright waved at her. After all, there are still a group of people waiting outside anxiously, so they can't play too much. The two of them almost broke away from the dream at the same time and returned to the present. As soon as Emily woke up, Alice rushed over and hugged her tightly. Sister Emily, congratulations on your success. Hey, how do you know I succeeded? Lilith didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Nonsense, we saw you advance to become a legendary powerhouse with our own eyes. If you failed, would there be such movement? It's just that you have passed the critical period, but it can't be considered recovered. Maybe I have to go to the elves in the future. Wright turned over and sat up, but overall, it is a success worth celebrating. And I can't help much. This time Emily took control of her own destiny. Lilith was relieved. You are worthy of my teaching. Oh, by the way, Wright. While you were in the dream, the alchemical secret instrument in your arms kept vibrating. It seems that Jonah wants to find you. Since you are back, you should contact her quickly. After all, the 10-day appointment is not a trivial matter. You have to greet these two world gods. I really need to talk to them. Wright took out the alchemical secret instrument in his arms. About the establishment of the Divine Court. Chapter 246. At this point, the Divine Court should be established in the harbor city, accompanied by a beam of light rising into the sky. Wright's will came to the god realm. This is a way for gods to summon believers, and it consumes a lot of energy. But this matter is too important, and we must meet and talk. When Wright came to the temple of the Holy Light Goddess, 8 angels immediately lined up in 2 rows and stood at the door of the hall to welcome his arrival. Boss, hello. Thank you for your hard work. Wright greeted the 8 archangels and walked into the hall. Jonah and Aphra were talking about something at this time. When they saw Wright coming, they immediately came to greet him. Wright and Jonah reached out to hug each other. Looking at the passionate appearance of the two, Aphra felt that she was worthy of being the Holy Light Goddess and was really a qualified light bulb. After a while, Jonah and the others took Wright into a side hall of the temple. It was relatively private here, which could ensure that the conversation of the 3 people would not be overheard by others. Are you two okay now? Jonah and Aphra looked at each other and nodded. Aphra even explained, for now, there is no big problem. But when the world was opened, we both suffered some minor injuries. This is probably the price of being the main god of this world. But as you repaired the hole in the world, our injuries also healed. Wright nodded slightly. The dragon of the end will come in about 10 days, and I will find a way to deal with it then. There may be an army of eternal dragons coming later, as well as other guys who want to fish in troubled waters. If you two continue to serve as the main gods of this world, you may become a huge target next. Aphra frowned, but if there is no main god in this world, the rejection of the world barrier will be reduced. At that time, it will become easier for those gods to enter this ownerless world. If one of the gods really occupies the position of the main god, then we will go from fighting at home to fighting away. I think it's better for me to continue to be the main god and let Sister Jonah step down. After all, this is my responsibility, and she is just an accident. No. The two of us must advance and retreat together. Wright looked at the two of them and suddenly laughed. So, do you want to listen to my advice? Jonah quickly grabbed Wright's hand. Do you have any good ideas? Of course. Wright patted the back of her hand, indicating that she was relieved. we can build the divine court and then separate the authority and responsibility of the main god. The responsibility will be borne by the divine court, and the authority will be exercised by the lord of the divine court. In this way, even if there is a problem in this world, it is the virtual individual of the divine court that will be damaged. This. Afra scratched her head. It sounds good, but is it really feasible? How can the virtual divine court become the main god? Originally it was not possible, but I got this from the Sage of Wisdom. Wright spread out his hand, and in his palm was the icon of the Tower of Truth. Below the icon is a tall tower, and on the top of the tower is a gate of truth. Since the establishment of the Tower of Truth, all members have worshipped this logo. Although they worship the so-called Door of Truth, this icon itself has great symbolic significance. It is even a collection of energy similar to some kind of totem worship. The wise sage, as the founder and actual controller of the Tower of Truth, has handed over the ownership of this totem to me. To be honest, this thing has no use except for its symbolic significance. If you have to say it, it is more like a tribute that the Tower of Truth has raised for who knows how many years, and is ready to offer to the Door of Truth. In addition to being delicious and juicy, it has no other advantages. The key is that this thing can only be offered to the Door of Truth because of the obsession of the members of the Tower of Truth. Other gods really can't enjoy it. Since it can't be used as food, I think it's good to be a scapegoat. Use it as a carrier of the virtual image of the god's court, and it will bear the injuries and injuries when the time comes. The Tower of Truth has been doing evil in this world for so long, and it just happens to be used to fight disasters, which can be regarded as a tit for tat. Afra looked at the icon in Light's hand, and couldn't help swallowing her saliva. She did feel a pure power of faith. If it was converted into divine power, it would probably not be inferior to her, the goddess of light. In fact, it is easy to understand. After all, although the crazy people in the Tower of Truth acted madly, they were all geniuses. Whether it was the strength of their spirit or the purity of their souls, they were not comparable to ordinary people. Moreover, they were very fanatical and sincere in their pursuit of truth, which was also incomparable to ordinary believers. Seeing that Afra was greedy, Light brought the thing to her. Do you like it? Do you want to take a bite? Afra shook her head repeatedly. The power of faith was not something that could be taken out and tasted casually. The faith of believers is often strongly directional. If the corresponding gods absorb it, it will be a great tonic. If other gods swallow it, it may be a poison that penetrates the intestines. So, this thing is just an 800 Jin birthday peach, pure waste. Okay. I agree with your idea. Of course I have no objection. I knew you would have a way. Wright smiled slightly, put the things away, and took out a shining pearl. The most bizarre thing is that this pearl contains a powerful divine power of light, the eye of condensation of the sea god. Afra snatched the pearl away. I didn't expect that you actually found it. It can be considered that the enemy came to my door. You can take away and absorb the divine power of light here, but you have to return this artifact to me. Why? Afra retreated in fear. She dreamed of owning an artifact of her own. Now that she got what she wanted, of course she was unwilling to hand it over. Wright rolled his eyes at her. This is the artifact of the sea god. In addition to a small part of the divinity of light, it is more of the divinity of the sea. If you absorb the divinity of light, it will be just a pure artifact of the sea god. Aren't you afraid of being laughed at by others for holding it as a goddess of holy light? I can take it back and use it to create a new sea god. In this way, this new god's court will not be just the two of you. At least it will be a bit like a god's court. Moreover, that is the sea god, the object of worship for all marine creatures. The number of sea creatures in the ocean is equal to the number of humans on the entire continent. Once we take down this part of the believers, the number of your two believers will double. Although they are not direct believers, the supplement of this power will be crucial. Afra hesitated again and again, and finally chose to hand over the pearl. Okay. Then who are you going to make the new sea god? Wright held the pearl in his hand and smiled evilly. Don't you think that the flesh and blood evil god is actually quite suitable? Chapter 247c, God and Flesh. After the totem of the Tower of Truth was properly placed, Afra and Jonah walked hand in hand to the throne of the main god. Although Jonah was an inexperienced novice god, Afra had worked hard all the way from the bottom to her current position. She knew very well how to establish the god's court and how to change the status of the main god of the current world. Under her operation and guidance, the whole process went very smoothly. After the status of the main god was successfully changed, the god's court was established. The vast divine light filled the entire temple of the holy light twin goddesses. The angels outside the door knelt on the ground and kept bowing in the direction of the temple. The establishment of the god's court means that the main god of a world has changed from one god to multiple gods. This is a goodwill signal, representing that these main gods intend to take out a part of the welfare of ruling the entire world and distribute it to other participants. In this way, the god's court will inevitably attract some homeless wandering gods, and of course it will also arouse a covetousness of some gods with ulterior motives. After all, there are many cases where opening the god's court eventually led to the wolf entering the house. But Wright has his own ideas. The purpose of opening the god's court is to help the two goddesses of holy light avoid unnecessary risks in the next disaster. This behavior, similar to the protection mechanism created by the company's equity, is for better self-consistency. In the short term, he is not going to introduce new foreign gods. Of course, it is still necessary to promote the gods within his own. After completing the creation of the god's court, Wright was warm with Jonah for a while. Afra, the light bulb, couldn't be driven away, no matter how hard he tried. In the end, Wright had to give her a small amount of divine coins to send her away. But good times are always short, and there are still a lot of things waiting for Wright to deal with. In desperation, Wright had to reluctantly leave the god's palace of the twin goddesses of holy light in the god realm, and his consciousness returned to the reliable grocery store in the harbor bay. Seeing the unsatisfied look on his face, Lilith puffed her cheeks and stepped on him, then turned back to her room and continued to digest the power of blasphemy. Now, the blasphemer's power obtained from the blasphemer's temple has been digested by her. She only needs to make a final sprint, and she will completely become the holder of the concept of malice. For so many days, she has been unable to attack with all her strength because she misjudged the digestion speed of the blasphemer's power. As a result, she has been unable to attack with all her strength. As a result, she has faced many crises and can only watch and assist from the sidelines, and her activity is not even as good as Emily. Finally, she is about to succeed. Lilith is sharpening her knife, ready to show her skills in the upcoming 10-day appointment and vent the frustration she has suffered in the past few days. After greeting everyone, Wright went straight to the seaside. Since the last war of the gods, the defeated gods have left this world one after another. The position of the god of the sea has been vacant for so many years. And now, it is time to fill this lucrative position. Wright jumped into the sea. Under the protection of the sea god's gaze, he rushed straight to the underwater palace of the Sea Clan like a cannonball. In the blink of an eye, Wright arrived above the sea god's palace. Looking at the magnificent and huge palace, Wright laughed. It really looks like a shell. When he killed the ancient sea god, Wright knew her true identity. It was a huge scallop, and the sea god's gaze was actually the pearl she nurtured. After her death, the Sea Clan royal family built this underwater palace with the blessing of the sea god, based on her remains. And now, in order to better let the flesh and blood inherit the sea god's priesthood, Wright made a crazy decision. Go, eat it. Wright stretched out his hand, and the flesh and blood that grew suddenly gushed out, twisting and rolling on the seabed, like a dark cloud formed by flesh and blood, slowly covering the sky above the palace. Such a change, the Sea Clan royal family naturally couldn't be unaware of it. They ran out in groups, and began to gather their troops, to prepare to fight against the strange object that suddenly appeared. Just as the Sea Tribe was about to launch an attack, the Sea Emperor saw Wright floating behind the behemoth. Don't move. The Sea Emperor's voice was even out of tune, because of excessive anxiety. The other Sea Tribes didn't know about the battle on Dragon Island, but as the Emperor of the Sea Tribe and the strongest individual in the sea, he could certainly sense it. The power of destroying the world, the collision like the arrival of the end of the world, and the unparalleled strength. Looking at the playful smile on the corner of the man's mouth, the Sea Emperor swallowed his saliva. It was a close call, and these people from the Sea Tribe almost became the weight of the other party to establish their power. Retreat. Retreat? The captain of the royal guard was dumbfounded. "Your Majesty, this is the palace. We are still retreating?" "Where to retreat? Get out of here. The farther the better. You command the guards. Whoever dares not to leave will be executed on the spot." Now not only the captain of the royal guard was confused, but also other dignitaries of the Sea clan were dumbfounded. What does this mean? Is our seeking a traitor? Your Majesty surrendered first, when we were about to fight to the death. Even if you don't want to live, and I with the palace and dignity of the Sea clan, there is no need to drive away those clansmen who want to fight to the death. Not only did you surrender, you also turned the gun around and shot at your own people. Looking at everyone's confused eyes, the Sea King wanted to cry, but had no tears. He didn't want to, but if he and others didn't get out of the way, the fate of the Sea clan would only be worse. The Sea clan has always been at odds with the Holy Light Church and lacks reverence for the Holy Light Goddess. Nowadays, the royal family is colluding with the Tower of Truth, and the ancient ocean god is trying to overthrow the rule of the Holy Light Goddess. Even if the man in front of him wipes out the entire high-level Sea clan, there will be nothing strange about it. He is not as gentle and patient with aliens as he is with humans. The eldest prince is the one who understands this best, and he was relieved after hearing his father's decision. People have to bow their heads under the eaves, which is the most important truth he has learned from traveling around the world over the years. The sea god is gone. What else can the Sea clan be arrogant about? The Holy Light Goddess and the Sea God had some friendship and some cooperation contracts before, so let it go. But now the person in charge has changed to the murderous man in front of him. The royal family of the Sea clan has already committed a crime and is guilty. If they show rebellion now, they will definitely be bloody purged. This person can do it. Moreover, no one and no god can stop it. What are you standing there for? This is the decree of the Sea Emperor. Get out of here. Do you want to go back to the Sea clan? Go. No. Run away. Amid the urging and roars of the Sea Emperor and his son, the Sea Emperor's palace was soon deserted. Wright nodded with satisfaction and stretched out his hand to draw downwards. The growing flesh and blood immediately sank, wrapped up the entire Sea Emperor's palace, and began to devour and digest it. Not bad, not bad. Eat this too. As Wright spoke, he threw the Poseidon's gazing eye down. The growing flesh and blood quickly stretched out several flesh and blood tentacles and swallowed the pearl into its body. With the swaying of the waves, the flesh and blood evil god began to accept the power of faith that had been accumulated by the Sea clan for thousands of years. Wright looked at the twisted and deformed flesh and blood and smiled with satisfaction. Then, start to ignite the divine fire. Chapter 248. It's not suitable. If the gods want to ignite the divine fire, then the purity of the power of faith and the fanaticism of the believers are extremely important factors. Although the believers of the flesh and blood cult are extremely fanatical and have a high purity of faith, but it had little relationship with the sea god before, and even if it ignited the divine fire, it could not become the sea god. But the good thing about the divine court is that it can provide priesthood for other gods in the name and authority of the main god. Swish. Under Wright's manipulation, the flesh and blood evil god, who had accumulated enough, easily ignited his divine fire. This is the soul fire of the gods, another form of existence of the soul. Sure enough, as Wright expected, the flesh and blood evil god has a low affinity with the sea god. But, this is the divine court, his divine court. If you say you can do it, then you can do it, and if you can't, it's okay. Wright greeted the two goddesses in the god realm through prayer. The two gods have been waiting for a long time, and hurriedly bestowed the sea god's priesthood on the flesh and blood evil god. In an instant, the flesh and blood were surging, like the waves coming and going. The previously devoured crocodile, the crane, the shell of the ancient ocean god, and the pearl, that looked like an eyeball. All the elements were mixed together to form an indescribable giant flesh and blood. Tentacles and eyeballs, blood vessels and fangs. All of this made it difficult for people to associate it with the sea. Perhaps, only the indescribable unknown and fear were the same as the sea. A new generation of sea god has arrived. When the sea people felt the breath of the sea god from this hideous and terrifying giant flesh and blood, they almost went crazy on the spot. They were terrified and couldn't believe it. After all, this was too different from the image of the sea god in their impression. Strange. Monster. This is a complete monster. One of the royal family of the sea couldn't help but blurt out, which was the voice of everyone. The Sea King and the eldest prince looked desperate, and they looked at Wright cautiously. Compared with this indescribable sea god, they were more worried about Wright's attitude. After all, no matter how terrible a monster is, it is not as terrible as the existence that created it. Before, some people might have doubted whether Wright had the ability to destroy the entire Sea Clan. I believe that, after seeing this scene, they will completely dispel this idea. Yes, it's a monster. Unexpectedly, in the face of such an offense, Wright was not angry, but laughed happily. But, who says monsters can't become gods? With this sentence, the hearts of the Sea Clan present suddenly calmed down for some reason. Yes, monsters are monsters, and it doesn't seem so difficult to accept that monsters become gods. The so-called god, you offer your loyalty and faith to him, and he returns your protection and blessings. Isn't that enough? Do you have higher requirements for the appearance of gods? Shaking his head madly. The Sea Clan present were all smart people. Their piety to the sea god was actually piety to this priesthood to a large extent, rather than a specific god. After all, in their cognition, the second generation of sea gods and the third generation of sea gods all came from their own group of sea clans. In essence, they have less, or of the sea god. And the Sea Clan didn't have a good time during the days when the sea god was away. Even if they were also living under someone else's roof, if the Sea Clan's sea god was still there, then they would have something to rely on. Now, a new sea god has appeared. Although it is ferocious and terrifying, there is nothing wrong with it. Gods are protectors and guardians, and they are not quite the same as idol stars. The appearance is a plus, but more importantly, the ability to protect believers. A god with a good image and good temperament is definitely not as good as a god with a fierce face and can fight. Believers can tell this clearly. And the most important point is the suppression of blood. The blood of the Sea Clan is clearly divided into different levels, and the Sea Emperor clan ranks at the top of the Sea Clan, because they have the blood of the sea god. Even the second and third generation sea gods are just the blood supreme selected from the clan. And the flesh and blood evil god has obtained the strongest blood power by devouring the remains of the ancient sea god. According to the underlying logic of the ancient sea god when creating the sea tribe naturally halts, or for the flesh and blood evil god. After the initial struggle and panic, the sea tribe knelt down one after another, murmured and sang, and celebrated the arrival of the new sea god. Good, very good. You have saved me a lot of effort. Hearing what Wright said, the eldest prince and the Sea King trembled all over and looked at each other with cold sweat. It was a close call, and they almost became the target of the other party's effort. After the sea god successfully returned to his position, a large amount of faith power gathered immediately. The replenishment of these faith powers made the divine fire of the new sea god, the flesh and blood evil god, suddenly surge and expand. Wright seized the opportunity and controlled the flesh and blood evil god to directly condense the godhood. Becoming a god of law is a very laborious process. From igniting the divine fire to condensing the godhood, the gods then have the divine staff, divine robe, divine crown, and divine throne. Step by step, gradually climb to the top of the god of law, and then you can start to impact the rank of the god of rules. Each of these steps requires a huge amount of faith power to accumulate, and this cannot be done lazily. Jonah was able to achieve success in one fell swoop, in addition to the path designed by Wright for her. More importantly, she benefited from Afra's help. She has occupied this world for a long time, and the power of faith has long been in surplus, and the only thing missing is the key divinity. At this moment, the god of flesh and blood benefited from the light of the third generation of the sea god who had long left. Although the sea god is gone, the sea people still believe in him as always. This huge power of faith has always been ownerless, and even the third generation of the sea god is still thinking about coming back to harvest a wave from time to time. But now, it all benefits the god of flesh and blood. The hideous human-shaped divine shadow emerged, and its divine body has been completely solidified. When the sea people saw that the sea god still had this external image, they were obviously much happier. It is a bit ugly, but compared to the original body, it can be said that it is more than a little better. But the god of flesh and blood has no time to care about them. It was first forcibly promoted by Wright to ignite the divine fire, and then it was stuffed into a completely inappropriate priesthood. Before it could catch its breath, it was forced to be upgraded and condensed into a godhood. The god of flesh and blood, in pain and joy. Aphra, who witnessed all this, quietly chatted with Light through the oracle. Light, is this okay? I feel that it is not very suitable to be the god of the sea. That's right. If it is too suitable, it will easily turn against the heavens in the future. Light said, and suddenly felt a strange fluctuation coming from the direction of the ruins of the Sea King's palace. He stretched out his hand and hooked it, and the Sea King's trident flew out, and landed in Light's hand. I didn't expect there is such a thing. Well, make the best use of it. Chapter 249. Do you want to know about swimming and fitness? The trident was once the weapon of the sea god, and was later given to the Sea King of the Sea Clan. Wright held it in his hand, and he had to say that this legendary weapon was indeed very textured. But Wright could see at a glance that this thing lacked divinity. Either it was the product of the failure of the sea god to sacrifice the artifact, or it was used too hard before, resulting in the loss of divinity after being damaged. But no matter which one, this trident was abandoned by the sea god. Now that the old god is dead and the new god should be established, the trident has also ushered in the opportunity to turn waste into treasure. Wright snapped his fingers, and the body of the god of flesh and blood appeared behind him, synchronized like a shadow. He mobilized the authority of the god of the sea, and began to sacrifice the trident again. At the same time, he also took out the dinner knife of the god of flesh and blood, and sacrificed it together. Wright mobilized the powerful divine power, and poured it into the trident and dinner knife continuously. With the smelting of the divine fire, the trident of the sea god actually began to gradually deform. Its long handle began to shorten and flatten, and the head of the trident began to bend into a natural arc. When Wright took back his divine power, the sea creatures who witnessed the whole process were in an uproar. Isn't this just a fork? It's the fork we use every day. If it is paired with the table knife just now, the knife and fork will be complete. It's like this. Why don't you serve the food? The knife and fork returned to Wright's hands. From now on, the knife and fork of the flesh and blood sea god will be the new sacrificial utensils of the sea creatures. At the same time, the godhood of the flesh and blood sea god was also successfully condensed. In addition to the divinity of the sea god, this godhood also contains a series of messy divinities such as immortality, devouring, and breeding. It has to be said that this sea god is definitely the one with the worst compatibility among all the sea gods of all generations. But as Wright said to Aphra, the position of the sea god cannot be filled by a guy who is too smart and capable. This is simply a huge granary, an oil well that has just been occupied. The god of flesh and blood has a good pedigree, and he has no selfishness, let alone any ambitions. It is extremely loyal, because it does not know what betrayal is. It has low spiritual awareness, but as long as it sits here, it can pay tribute to the two goddesses with the endless power of faith of the sea people. Moreover, there is no need to worry that he will withhold the power of faith. It is simply a perfect useless worker. The sea god is only a temporary one. Wright thought again and again, turned to look at the eldest prince and the Sea King, and smiled kindly. You work hard, and if one day you can successfully ascend to the throne of God, I will consider returning the sea god's throne to you again. But in the meantime, I hope you can cooperate well, don't be half-hearted, and don't eat and smash the pot. Work hard to improve your strength, which is better than anything else. Wright waved his hand, and the flesh and blood that grew suddenly shrank rapidly, and finally turned into a fist-sized bloody flesh, which drilled into Wright's palm. The terrifying sense of oppression disappeared instantly, and the sea people were pardoned one by one. Especially the Sea King. He had the honor of seeing the sea god himself when he was young. The other party's sense of oppression seemed far less than this time. Okay, your palace is gone. Rebuild it well. I'm going to take Gladys away for a while. She's safe with me. You don't have to worry. After saying that, Wright turned around and headed towards the direction of the harbor city. The goal was achieved, so there was no need to stay any longer. But because he left so decisively, without any dragging his feet, the Sea Kings present were confused. They didn't know whether they should cry or laugh. Wright rushed all the way and soon returned to the harbor city. After he got ashore, the heads of the Flesh and Blood Church rushed over. They were full of sorrow and the same amount of doubts, all of which fell on Wright. It turned out that just now, when the flesh and blood evil god became the flesh and blood sea god, these original flesh and blood believers felt that they had become strange all of a sudden. They became extremely eager for the sea and eager to swim in it. The most important thing was that their water ability became extremely good. Entering the sea was as comfortable and free as going home, and they were even a little reluctant to leave. After hearing this, Wright laughed and patted the Hall Masters on the shoulders. "Don't worry, you have no problem, you are the best. As for why, it is entirely because our flesh and blood church is about to launch a new all-round exercise program. Swimming fitness. Whether it is shaping or reducing fat, the efficiency of swimming is far above general exercise. You must seize this opportunity, exercise well, and help other believers to recruit more believers. Come, repeat after me. Hello, let's learn about swimming fitness." The Hall Masters scratched their heads, looking at each other. Although they couldn't tell what was strange, they always felt that something was strange. But even if it was strange, they didn't dare to doubt Wright, so they had to do what he said. After dispersing the flesh and blood church believers who were blocking here, Wright walked back to his grocery store. Perhaps because of fatigue and fear, Unica, Gladys and Emily returned to their boudoirs and fell asleep. Only Alice and Lilith were working hard. Lilith was about to finish digesting the Blasphemer's power, while Alice was constantly familiarizing herself with the fairy tale elements of space. Wright couldn't bear to see a little girl doing such complicated work. He came to the courtyard and called softly, "Pinocchio, here." The lie demon hurried over and stood up in front of Wright. "Boss, what do you want?" "It's not a request. I want to talk to you about promotion and salary increase." Pinocchio didn't react when he heard this at first. When he realized that pie in the sky had fallen, he couldn't believe it from the bottom of his heart. "Don't look at me like that. I mean it sincerely." Light circled around Pinocchio. "You have now completely unlocked the seal, and your strength has recovered to half of its original heyday. With such a strong strength, it is obviously a waste of human resources to be an idler here. What is the most expensive thing nowadays? Talent. I really can't bear to see you waste your youth like this, so I decided to give you a platform to show your abilities." The lying demon was still vigilant. "Then, boss, what are you going to promote me to?" "Big official." Light smiled sinisterly. "You see, the fairy tale elements of space has just been established, and it is a time when there is no leader. There must be someone to lead them to glory. I think you are very suitable. I wonder if you are interested in the position of the Lord of Fairy Tales. Chapter 250. Are fairy tales all lies? Even if I, the demon of lies, die, I will jump down from here, and I will never be the lord of the plane of the fairy tale subspace." Pinocchio was so angry that he jumped up and down, and the wood on his body creaked. He felt a humiliation he had never felt before. After all, he was also a conceptual level strongman. In these low energy worlds, he was an absolutely invincible and terrifying existence. If there was no special case of Wright in this world, he would have turned it into a plaything in his hands long ago. Although he is now down and out, and has become an employee similar to Wright's familiar. But that is because Wright, the boss, is really strong. Whether it is hard power or wisdom, he is convinced of his defeat. Even if he really becomes the other party's familiar, he will do his best to be his butler. Although demons and devils are deeply hated, and they don't get along with each other. But as Wright said, they are extreme but not complicated. Unlike humans, the fluctuations of souls are noisy and irregular, and the direction of collapse and emergence is unpredictable. Demons like to play conspiracies, but they abide by the creed. Demons are cruel, ruthless, and greedy, but they worship the strong. Logically, Pinocchio would not have such a big stress reaction to the orders of his boss, Wright. But that was a fairy tale. That kind of thing to fool children. If you want to humiliate me, just say it directly, no need to be so roundabout. Pinocchio. Wright suddenly shouted loudly, with a gleam of anger in his eyes, which scared the lying demon. "I originally thought that you were a lying demon, and it should be easy to see through the deep meaning. I didn't expect that you are so vulgar and ignorant. I'm really disappointed with you, the boss. I. The lying demon was a little confused. Was there anything wrong with what he just said? Seeing him like this, Wright began to persuade him step by step. Let me ask you, are fairy tales lies? Yes, I guess so. But they are just to fool children. You have to look beyond the phenomenon and see the essence. Wright raised a finger in front of him. Then I have to ask you, devil of lies. From the time you were born and lies to now, you have told so many lies and created so many scams. Is there a lie that others are willing to believe, even though they know it is a lie? Is there a lie that both the narrator and the listener know is a lie, but they still enjoy it? Is there a lie that is recognized by the world, but is widely spread, even praised and regarded as a treasure? Is there? The devil of lies opened his mouth and wanted to say something, but his mind was blank. Seeing this, Wright quickly seized the opportunity and continued to instill ideas into his mind. Fairy tales, lies known to everyone, and also things that people compete to pass on. It represents the highest realm of lies. Lies can be lies, and they are very lies. Seemingly true, but not true, moistening things silently, like a dream, like a bubble, and like the passing of time. The lie demon waited with confused eyes. What do you mean? When you become the master of the fairy tale subspace, you will be able to understand the truth. Although there are precedents for the path of falsehood, it is ultimately a path that others have walked. Don't you think about walking a path of your own? The lie demon was really moved. After all, he was once heroic and full of passion, vowing to use his own strength to pave a way for the path of lies. But after so many years and so many failures, he gradually became a little discouraged, so he wanted to borrow the wisdom of his predecessors and take a shortcut. But as he spent more and more time in contact with Wright, for some reason, the flame that had long been extinguished in his heart seemed to be rekindled. Especially when he was fighting with the wise sage, he was blessed by the true lore and concept of emergence of the flesh and blood evil god, and he advanced briefly into a psychedelic state that was both real and fake. The joy brought by the end of the road suddenly extending again made him unforgettable to this day. Maybe following this boss will really be different. The devil of lies looked at Light. Boss, is being the lord of the fairy tale elemental subspace really as good as you said? Of course. Then since the benefits are so great, why don't you let Alice be it? Speaking of which, isn't she more suitable than me? She is the chairman, and you are the general manager. Besides, she is still a child. Don't you always regard yourself as her mentor? Do you want to see poor Alice being exhausted by all those chores at such a young age? That would be an absolute waste of her qualifications. I'll tell you a secret. Ever since Emily became successful, Lilith has often regarded herself as Emily's teacher. If you fall behind in training students, don't blame me for not reminding you next time someone mocks you. Pinocchio gritted his teeth and finally stomped his feet. Okay, but I have a condition. Light didn't expect that the other party had raised the white flag just after he made the opening move, and he couldn't help feeling happy. You said, any conditions are fine. I want to change my body. This puppet body? Yes. Isn't it good? Although there are limits on your strength, that is to restrain you and prevent you from over-relying on the power of lies. You were born in lies, and your manipulation of the power of lies is as natural as breathing. In this way, you can't see your true self, so you have been trapped in the same place for so long. With this body, you need to concentrate on understanding, and you will definitely achieve something in the future. Pinocchio waved his hands repeatedly. I'm not talking about getting rid of this puppet body, but I want to change my body to some good wood. You took the door panels of the small fishing village to make my body. Have you forgotten? Those houses have been soaked in the sea for who knows how many years. They are damp and smelly. Not to mention that they squeak when you walk. They are also easy to lose debris in parts. Pinocchio suddenly turned around and showed his back. Wright was bewildered. What? Do you want to say that you are a gangster and you have me on your back? No. Look, I have shipworms on my back. Don't you think it's embarrassing for you to be the lord of the warp in this state? Even if it's for your own face, at least change my clothes. Wright rubbed his chin. This request is reasonable. I can't find any reason to refute it. Well, just treat it as a belated employee benefit. Okay. Now, what kind of wood do you want to reshape your body? The lying demon rubbed his hands and said with a smile, of course it's the ancient tree of life of the elves. That tree contains rich life force, using its branches as a place for my soul to reside. Even if it is not a real body, it can nourish my soul. Wright thought again and again. Okay, no problem. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.